There is a specific kind of silence that exists only in expensive apartments in London. It is not an empty silence. It is a heavy, insulated silence, smelling of old money, polished oak, and the faint, crisp scent of rain washing against triple-glazed windows. I used to love this silence. I used to stand in the middle of my living room in Kensington Heights, closing my eyes, just to listen to the sound of my own success. It sounded like safety. It sounded like I had finally outrun the poverty of my childhood in the grey suburbs of Manchester. My name is Hannah Anderson. I am 32 years old, and until this morning, I believed I was the luckiest woman in the city. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 10:15 on a Tuesday. The rain was drumming a steady, rhythmic beat against the glass of the balcony door, blurring the view of the city skyline into a watercolor painting of grays and silvers. I had taken the day off from the administrative office where I worked as a senior manager. I wanted to prepare for our 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years, half a decade of being Mrs. Anderson. I walked over to the kitchen island, running my hand over the cold, smooth marble surface. Everything in this flat was chosen by me. The curtains, the rugs, the specific shade of cream paint on the walls. I remembered the day I signed the deed for this place. It was 3 years ago. I had used every penny of my savings, inheritance from my grandmother, and the bonuses I had scraped together over 10 years of working 60-hour weeks. Tyler, my husband, had held my hand as I signed the papers. He looked so proud. He had whispered in my ear, "You did it, Hannah. You built our castle." Tyler Anderson. The name still made me smile, even after 5 years. He was the director of sales for a boutique investment firm. Charming, devastatingly handsome in a suit, with a voice that could melt the resolve of the toughest client. He was the kind of man who remembered to bring flowers on a Tuesday just because. He was the kind of man who held doors open and pulled out chairs. He was perfect. Or rather, he was the perfect complement to my rigidity. I was the structure, the discipline, the one who balanced the books. He was the charisma, the dreamer, the face of our social life. I poured myself a second cup of coffee, the steam rising in the cool air. I was planning the dinner menu for Thursday. Roast lamb, perhaps, or maybe a reservation at that new French place in Mayfair he liked. Then, the phone rang. It wasn't my mobile. It was the landline, the intercom phone connected to the building's management office. A harsh, jarring trill that sliced through the peaceful silence of the morning. I frowned. We rarely got calls on the landline unless there was a package delivery or a fire drill test. I walked over to the wall-mounted unit and lifted the receiver. "Hello? Apartment 17, Hannah Anderson speaking." "Good morning, Mrs. Anderson," a professional, slightly clipped female voice replied. I recognized it immediately. It was the receptionist from the management office downstairs. Usually, her voice was warm, bordering on obsequious. Today, it was cold, formal. "This is the Kensington Heights Management Office. I am calling regarding the outstanding service charges for your unit." I blinked, confused. I took a sip of coffee, assuming there was a mistake. "Service charges? I believe we are up to date. My husband usually handles the drop-off for the checks." There was a pause on the other end, a pause that lasted a second too long. It was the silence of someone holding back judgment. "Mrs. Anderson," the voice continued, firmer this time. "According to our records, the service fees for the last 2 quarters are unpaid. That includes the maintenance levy and the concierge fee. You are currently 3 months in arrears. The total outstanding amount is £2,500. The coffee cup halted halfway to my mouth. "That's impossible," I said, a nervous laugh escaping my lips. 2,500? There must be a system error. Tyler, my husband, he took the money to your office just 2 days ago. We discussed it. We have not received any payment for Unit 17 since January, Mrs. Anderson. We have sent 3 warning letters. Since we received no response, and given the recent activity regarding your property, we need this settled immediately." My brain snagged on that phrase, but the panic about the money was louder. £2,500. The memory of Sunday evening flooded back to me with crystal clarity. We were in this very kitchen. Tyler was leaning against the counter, looking stressed, rubbing his temples in that way that always made my heart soften. He had told me that the management fees had gone up due to inflation and energy costs. He said they needed a lump sum for the next 6 months, £3,000. He had asked me for the transfer because, as he always said with a self-deprecating smile, "You are the CFO of this family, Hannah. I'm just the spender. I don't want to mess up the accounts." I remembered transferring the money to his personal account instantly. I remembered teasing him. "3,000? Are they paving the lobby with gold?" I had asked. He hadn't laughed. He had looked at me with those deep, soulful brown eyes and said, "Times are tough, babe. Everything is going up. You handle the big savings, let me handle the bills. You trust me to walk downstairs and pay a bill, don't you? Or are you afraid I'll spend it on a secret girlfriend?" He had laughed then, a rich, warm sound. And I had felt guilty for even hesitation. Of course I trusted him. He was Tyler. "Mrs. Anderson, are you still there?" The receptionist's voice snapped me back to the present. Yes, I'm here," I stammered. My hands were suddenly cold. The ceramic mug felt like ice against my palms. "Look, there is obviously a misunderstanding. My husband definitely paid it. Maybe it hasn't cleared in your system yet. I will come down there and sort this out." "Please do," she said. "We open until 5. But Mrs. Anderson, bring the relevant documents. We cannot delay this any longer." The line went dead. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the receiver in my hand. The silence of the apartment rushed back in, but it no longer felt safe. It felt oppressive. It felt like the air before a thunderstorm. Why would Tyler lie about paying the bill? Maybe he forgot? He was busy. He had been so distracted lately with that big merger he kept talking about. Yes, that must be it. He probably transferred the money to his other account and forgot to write the check. It was a simple administrative error. Men like Tyler were big-picture thinkers. They often missed the small details. But the voice in my head, the voice of the girl who grew up counting pennies in Manchester, whispered a darker thought. He asked for 3,000. The bill is 2,500. Where is the other 500? And why did the receptionist say 3 months in arrears? If he forgot this week, that explains one payment. But 3 months? That meant he hadn't paid the previous quarter either. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I placed the coffee mug down on the counter. My hand was shaking slightly. I clenched my fist to stop it. "Stop it, Hannah," I said aloud to the empty room. My voice sounded thin and weak. "Don't be paranoid. Don't be your mother." My mother was a woman who suspected every shadow of hiding a monster. She spent her life waiting for disaster, and because she waited for it, she usually found it. I had spent my adult life trying to be the opposite. I trusted, I built, I believed in the solidity of things. I walked to the study. I needed the file. The house file. I was meticulous with paperwork. Every receipt, every warranty, every document related to this apartment was organized in a blue binder on the second shelf. I pulled the binder down. It felt heavy, solid, reality. I opened it and flipped through the pages. There was the original title deed. Hannah Anderson. My name. In bold black letters. Proof of ownership. Proof that I was safe. I ran my finger over the embossed seal. This was mine. No matter what happened, this roof over my head was mine. I took the deed, my passport, and the bank transfer receipt on my phone showing the money I sent to Tyler on Sunday. I would go downstairs, show them the proof of funds, and then I would call Tyler and give him a stern lecture about administrative competence. We would laugh about it over dinner. He would apologize, maybe buy me an expensive bottle of wine to make up for the stress. That was the script. That was how the scene was supposed to play out. I grabbed my trench coat and my bag. As I locked the door to apartment 17, I took one last look inside. Everything was perfect. The cushions were plumped, the floor shone. It was a stage set for a happy life. I took the lift down. The descent from the 25th floor felt faster than usual. My stomach dropped with every passing floor number. 20. 15. 10. I took out my phone and opened my messages. I found the thread with Camille. Camille Harris, my best friend since university. She was the only one who knew how much anxiety I hid behind my composed exterior. I typed quickly, my thumbs flying over the screen. Hey, remember how I said Tyler is perfect? Turns out he's perfectly forgetful. Currently on my way to manage building management because he apparently forgot to pay the service fees for 3 months. If I find out he spent that cash on a new golf club, I'm selling his car. I added a rolling eyes emoji. It was a lie. I wasn't annoyed about golf clubs. I was terrified, but making it into a joke made it manageable. Sure, if I could laugh about it with Camille, then it wasn't a tragedy. It was just a sitcom plot. Camille replied almost instantly. Men. Ugh. Make him pay double next month as penalty. Also, check if there's a bag I want that costs exactly $2,500. Just saying. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. The lift doors dinged softly and slid open. The lobby of Kensington Heights was designed to impress. High ceilings, marble floors that clicked under your heels, and a massive chandelier that looked like a frozen explosion of crystals. It smelled of expensive lilies and floor wax. Usually, walking through here made me feel like a queen. Today, I felt like an imposter. I walked towards the glass-walled management office at the far end of the hall. I could see Ms. Dupree sitting behind her desk. She was a woman in her 50s, with hair sprayed into an immobile helmet of blonde and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She was typing furiously. I pushed the heavy glass door open. The bell chimed. Ms. Dupree looked up. Her expression did not change. She didn't smile. She didn't offer the usual, "Good morning, Mrs. Anderson." She just stopped typing and folded her hands on the desk. "Mrs. Anderson," she said, acknowledging me with a nod. "Ms. Dupree," I replied, trying to project confidence. I placed my blue binder on her desk. "I'm here to clear up this confusion about the fees." I sat down in the chair opposite her without waiting to be invited. I opened the binder and pulled out the transfer receipt on my phone. "As I told your receptionist," I began, keeping my voice steady, "I transferred the funds to my husband on Sunday. £3,000. Here is the transaction ID. If he hasn't paid you yet, it's simply a delay on his end. I will write you a check right now for the full amount, and I will deal with him later." I reached for my checkbook. I wanted this over. I wanted to pay, leave, and go back to my quiet apartment. Ms. Dupree didn't look at the phone. She didn't look at my checkbook. She was looking at me with a strange mixture of pity and irritation. "Mrs. Anderson," she said slowly, "the service fee is a secondary issue at this point." I paused, pen hovering over the check. "Excuse me?" "When I spoke to you on the phone," she said, adjusting her glasses, "I mentioned recent activity regarding the property." "Yes," I said. "What activity?" Ms. Dupree took a deep breath. She turned her monitor screen slightly so she could see it better, but kept it angled away from me. "Yesterday afternoon," she said, her voice dropping an octave, "Mr. Anderson came into this office." "Okay," I said. "So he did come to pay?" "No," she shook her head. "He came in to request the pre-sale information pack, the documents required for transferring ownership of the unit." The world stopped spinning for a second. "Transferring ownership?" I repeated the words, but they sounded like a foreign language. "I don't understand. We aren't selling the flat." "He was quite insistent," Ms. Dupree continued. "He said that due to severe financial difficulties, the family needed to liquidate the asset quickly. He asked for the expedited process." I stared at her. My mouth felt dry, like I had swallowed sand. That's ridiculous," I managed to say. "Tyler wouldn't—" "We are not in financial difficulty. I handle the accounts. I would know." "He wasn't alone, Mrs. Anderson," Ms. Dupree said softly. The air in the room seemed to vanish. "What do you mean?" He was with a young woman, Ms. Dupree said. She looked down at her keyboard, avoiding my eyes now. A Miss Alyssa Moore. He introduced her as the buyer, or rather, the new title holder. Alyssa Moore. The name hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I knew that name. Of course I knew that name. Alyssa was Tyler's cousin, a distant relative from the countryside who had moved to London 6 months ago. Tyler had been so kind to her. "She's family, Hannah," he had said. "She's struggling to find her feet in the city. We have to help her." We had had her over for dinner. I had given her my old coats. I had helped her fix her CV. She was a quiet, wide-eyed girl who looked at Tyler with hero worship and at me with shy respect. "Alyssa?" I whispered. She's his cousin. She doesn't have money to buy a flat in Kensington. She works in a coffee shop." Ms. Dupree pursed her lips. "I don't know about her employment, Mrs. Anderson. I only know what was presented to me. Mr. Anderson claimed the transfer was a formality. He said you were aware of it. He said you were too devastated by the bankruptcy to come in person." Bankruptcy. The word echoed in my skull. "I am not bankrupt," I said, my voice rising. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "And I am certainly not selling my home to Alyssa Moore. This apartment is in my name. Mine alone. He cannot sell it. He cannot transfer it. Not without my signature." I grabbed the title deed from my binder and slammed it onto the desk. "Look at this," I demanded. "Hannah Anderson. That is me. This is the original deed. Whatever he told you, whatever game he is playing, it ends now." Ms. Dupree looked at the deed. Then she looked at me. She sighed, a long, weary sound of a bureaucrat who hated drama. "Mrs. Anderson," she said, her voice losing its softness, "please sit down. You are causing a scene." "I don't care about the scene," I snapped. "I care about my house. I want to know why you entertained this fraud." "Because," Ms. Dupree said, her voice turning icy, "Mr. Anderson brought us a deed too, and a power of attorney, signed by you." "I never signed anything." "The documents looked authentic," she shrugged. "And frankly, Mrs. Anderson, the deed you are holding—" She gestured vaguely at the paper under my hand. "Are you sure that is the original?" "Of course it is." I looked down at the document. The paper was thick, cream-colored. The seal was red. "May I?" Ms. Dupree reached out. I hesitated, then pushed the paper towards her. She picked it up. She rubbed the paper between her thumb and forefinger. She squinted at the seal. Then she opened a drawer and took out a small UV light scanner. She ran it over the watermark. She looked up at me. "This is a high-quality color photocopy, Mrs. Anderson," she said flatly. "It is not the original. The watermark is lifeless. And if you look here," she pointed to the bottom corner, "there is a faint smudge of magenta ink, a printer error." I looked. I leaned in close. There, barely visible to the naked eye, was a tiny, microscopic smear of pink. My knees gave way. I sat back down heavily. A photocopy. My solid reality, my safety in the blue binder. It was a fake, a prop. My mind raced back. When was the last time I checked the binder? 3 months ago? 4? Tyler had access to the study. Tyler knew where the key was. He had stolen the deed. He had replaced it with a fake. And he had done it months ago. This wasn't a sudden mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. "Where is the real deed?" I whispered. "We have the new registration in the system," Ms. Dupree said, turning her screen towards me finally. "The transfer was logged pending final review this morning. The new owner of Unit 17 is Alyssa Moore." I stared at the screen. The letters blurred. Alyssa Moore. And then I heard the bell on the door chime again. The sound was cheerful. Ting-a-ling. I turned around slowly, my neck stiff, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Through the glass walls of the office, I saw the lobby. And walking through the main entrance, laughing at something on her phone, was a woman. She was young. Her hair was bouncing perfectly. She was wearing a coat I knew very well, a beige cashmere trench coat with a specific silk lining. My coat. The one I had bought in Paris 2 years ago and kept for special occasions. And on her arm, swinging casually, was a black quilted Chanel bag with gold hardware. The bag Tyler had shown me a picture of last week. "For our anniversary, babe. Only the best for you." It was Alyssa. She looked radiant. She looked rich. She looked like the mistress of the house. She looked up and saw me through the glass. Her smile froze. Her phone lowered. For a second, we just looked at each other. The wife, sitting in the office with a fake deed in her hand, and the cousin, standing in the lobby wearing the wife's clothes. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, cold clarity washed over me. The confusion was gone. The denial was dead. The silence in my head shattered. I stood up. I picked up my bag. I picked up the fake deed. "Mrs. Anderson?" Ms. Dupree called out nervously. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer her. I walked to the door and pushed it open. I walked out into the lobby. Alyssa saw me coming. She took a step back, her heels clicking on the marble. She looked terrified. She looked guilty. "Chido?" "Sister-in-law." She stammered, the Vietnamese honorific slipping out in her panic, before she switched back to English, her voice trembling. "Hannah, what are you doing here?" I stopped 3 feet away from her. I looked at the coat. I looked at the bag. I looked at her face, caked in expensive foundation that I probably paid for. "Hello, Alyssa," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. "Nice bag. Did my husband buy it for you with the service fee money?" The lobby of Kensington Heights was a cavern of echoes. Every sound was amplified. The click of heels, the hum of the lift, and the sharp intake of breath from the concierge desk. But the loudest sound in the room was the beat of my own heart, hammering against my ribs like a frantic prisoner trying to escape. Alyssa stood 3 feet away from me, and the distance felt like a canyon. She blinked, her long, false lashes fluttering like trapped moths. She looked at the bag in her hand, the quilted black leather that shone under the chandelier lights, and then back at me. Her grip on the handle tightened, turning her knuckles white. "Hannah," she said again, her voice dropping to a whisper that was perfectly pitched to sound terrified. "Please, everyone is looking. Don't do this here." "Don't do what?" I asked. My voice was steady, but it felt foreign to me, as if it belonged to someone else, someone colder, someone dangerous. "I am just asking a question, Alyssa. It's a simple question. Why are you wearing my coat? And why did you just buy my apartment?" Alyssa took a step back. She looked around the lobby. It was mid-morning, a time when the building was usually quiet, but today, fate had arranged an audience. Mrs. Higgins from the 3rd floor was walking her Pomeranian towards the exit. 2 young men in suits were waiting for an Uber by the glass doors. The delivery driver who had just dropped off a package was lingering, sensing drama. They were all watching. Alyssa saw them too, and I saw the moment she decided to change tactics. The fear in her eyes didn't disappear. It morphed. It became performative. She hunched her shoulders slightly, making herself look smaller, frailer. She clutched the Chanel bag to her chest like a shield. I didn't buy it, Hannah," she stammered, her voice trembling just enough for Mrs. Higgins to pause near the door. "I'm just helping Tyler. He said you were sick. He said you couldn't handle the stress of the paperwork." "Sick?" I repeated the word. It tasted like bile. "Is that what he told you? That I'm sick?" "He said you were having episodes," Alyssa whispered, tears welling up in her eyes with miraculous speed. A single, perfect tear rolled down her cheek, cutting through the thick layer of foundation. "He said you were confused. That's why he needed me to put the flat in my name temporarily, just to protect the assets until you got better." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity of the lie. It was so elaborate, so grotesque, that for a second I couldn't even speak. Episodes? Confused? Tyler was painting me as mentally unstable. He was stripping away my credibility before I even knew I was in a fight. "I am not confused, Alyssa," I said, stepping forward. She flinched violently, as if I had raised a hand to strike her. She stumbled back, her high heel catching on the edge of the rug. She didn't fall, but she let out a small, pitiful cry. "Please, Hannah," she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'll give the bag back. I didn't know you wanted it. Tyler said you threw it out." The words hung in the air. Tyler said you threw it out. The crowd shifted. I could feel the mood in the room change. It turned against me. To them, I wasn't the victim of fraud. I was the rich, angry wife cornering a frightened young girl over a handbag. I was the bully. Mrs. Higgins took a step closer, her Pomeranian yapping at my ankles. "Is everything all right here?" Mrs. Higgins asked. Her voice was sharp, her eyes darting suspiciously between me and Alyssa. She looked at Alyssa's tear-streaked face, and then at my rigid, furious posture. "Mrs. Anderson, you're upsetting the poor girl." "This is a family matter, Mrs. Higgins," I said, trying to keep my composure. "It doesn't concern you." "It concerns me if you're shouting in the lobby," Mrs. Higgins huffed. She turned to Alyssa, her face softening. "Are you okay, dear? Do you need some water?" Alyssa nodded aggressively, sniffing loudly. "I'm fine. I don't want to cause trouble. I just came to pick up the keys." "Keys?" I snapped. My control was fraying. "You don't get keys to my house, Alyssa. Give me the bag, and take off my coat. Now." It was a mistake. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. Demanding the clothes off someone's back in public sounded cruel. It sounded insane. But seeing her in that beige trench coat, the one I wore on my honeymoon in Paris, was like seeing her wear my skin. It was a violation I couldn't tolerate. "You can't be serious," one of the men in suits muttered near the door. "It's raining outside." "She has her own clothes underneath," I argued, turning to the stranger. "That coat belongs to me." "Hannah, please," Alyssa wailed. She started fumbling with the buttons of the coat, her hands shaking theatrically. "I'll take it off. Just don't be angry at Tyler. He's trying so hard to take care of you." "Stop it," I commanded. "Stop acting. You know exactly what you're doing." I reached out, intending to grab her arm, to stop her ridiculous striptease in the middle of the lobby. I just wanted her to stand still and answer me truthfully. But before my fingers could even graze the fabric of the coat, Ms. Dupree burst out of the management office. "Mrs. Anderson! That is enough!" Ms. Dupree marched across the marble floor, her heels clicking like gunfire. She positioned herself between me and Alyssa, effectively acting as a human shield for the new owner. "This is a place of residence, not a boxing ring," Ms. Dupree scolded me. She looked at me with open disapproval. "I will not tolerate harassment in my lobby." "Harassment?" I laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "I am the one being robbed, Ms. Dupree. You just told me 5 minutes ago that this woman has my title deed, and now she's standing here wearing my clothes, and you're protecting her?" "I am protecting the peace of this building," Ms. Dupree said firmly. She turned to Alyssa. "Miss Moore, are you injured?" Alyssa shook her head, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked so small, so fragile next to Ms. Dupree's stern bulk. "No," Alyssa whispered. "I'm okay. I should call Tyler. He knows how to handle her when she gets like this." When she gets like this, another nail in the coffin of my sanity. "Yes," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Call him. Call my husband. Put him on speaker. I want to hear him explain why he sold my house to his cousin." Alyssa pulled her phone out of the Chanel bag. My bag. Her fingers tapped the screen. She didn't put it on speaker. She held it to her ear, turning slightly away from me, but speaking loud enough for the room to hear. The phone rang twice. Then it connected. Tyler? Alyssa sobbed into the receiver. Tyler, you have to come. It's Hannah. She's found out. She's at the building. I watched her back. I watched the way her shoulders shook. She's screaming at me, Ty, she continued, her voice pitching up into a whine. She tried to rip the coat off me. Ms. Dupree had to stop her. She's really scary, Tyler. I'm afraid. I stood there, frozen. I wasn't scary. I was standing still, my arms at my sides, my nails digging into my palms so hard I could feel the skin breaking. I was the one who had been lied to, robbed, and gaslit. But in this narrative, I was the monster. There was a pause as Tyler spoke on the other end. I couldn't hear his words, but I could hear the tone. It was urgent. Okay, Alyssa said, sniffing. Okay, I'll wait in the office. Please hurry. I don't know what she'll do next. She hung up. She turned back to us, clutching the phone to her chest. He's coming, she announced. She looked at Ms. Dupree. He said he's 10 minutes away. He asked if I could wait in your office, Ms. Dupree? Away from her? She pointed a trembling finger at me. Ms. Dupree nodded sympathetically. Of course, Miss Moore. You can sit in the back room. I'll get you some tea. Wait, I stepped forward. She is not going anywhere. She needs to answer my questions. Ms. Dupree held up a hand, stopping me in my tracks. Mrs. Anderson, she said coldly, you have no authority over Miss Moore. According to our records, she is a resident owner. You, however, are currently listed as a dependent occupant. If you continue to act aggressively, I will have to call security to escort you out. Dependent occupant. The term slapped me across the face. I had bought this place. I had paid the deposit. I had chosen the marble. I had paid the mortgage for 3 years before we paid it off. And now, because of a forged signature and a corrupt system, I was a dependent occupant in my own home. I looked at Ms. Dupree. I looked at Mrs. Higgins, who was shaking her head in disgust at me. I looked at Alyssa, who was being ushered into the glass office like a VIP refugee. As Alyssa walked past me, shielded by Ms. Dupree, she paused for a fraction of a second. Her back was to the others. Ms. Dupree couldn't see her face. Mrs. Higgins couldn't see her face. Only I could see her. The tears were gone. The fear vanished instantly like a light being switched off. She looked me dead in the eye. Her lips curved up into a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. It was a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. It was the look of a woman who knew she had won the audience, and now she was about to take the prize. She mouthed 2 words to me. No sound, just the movement of her lips. My turn. Then she turned away, sniffing loudly again, and disappeared into the office. I was left standing alone in the middle of the lobby. The silence returned, but it was different now. It wasn't the heavy, expensive silence of safety. It was the silence of isolation. I was an island. The water was rising, and the sharks were circling. I didn't leave. I didn't chase her. I walked over to one of the velvet armchairs in the waiting area and sat down. I crossed my legs. I placed my bag on my lap. I smoothed the fabric of my trench coat, my own coat, the one that suddenly felt cheaper, less significant than the one Alyssa was wearing. I checked my watch. 10 minutes. Tyler was coming. The man I had slept beside for 5 years. The man I had trusted with my life, my body, and my bank account. He was coming to handle me. He was coming to explain why I was crazy. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of lilies and floor wax. I forced my heart to slow down. I forced my hands to stop shaking. I remembered something my father used to tell me before he left us. Hannah, when you're in a corner, don't bark. Wait for them to get close enough to bite. I wasn't going to bark anymore. I wasn't going to scream. I was done with the hysterics that Alyssa wanted me to perform. I took out my phone. I opened the recording app. I set it to record and placed the phone face down on the small coffee table in front of me, hidden beneath a decorative magazine. Then I waited. The minutes ticked by. The rain outside intensified, lashing against the glass doors. The lobby grew darker as the clouds thickened. At exactly 9 minutes past 11, the revolving doors spun. A man walked in. He was wearing a navy blue suit, the one I had bought him for his promotion. His hair was perfectly styled despite the wind. He looked breathless, concerned, the picture of a worried husband rushing to save his wife from herself. It was Tyler. He scanned the lobby. His eyes swept past Mrs. Higgins, past the concierge, and landed on me. For a split second, I saw the calculation in his eyes. He was assessing the scene. He was checking to see who was watching. He was preparing his mask. Then, his face softened into an expression of deep, pained concern. He rushed towards me, arms outstretched. "Hannah!" he called out, his voice echoing with practiced worry. "Oh God, Hannah! Are you okay?" He reached me. He knelt down in front of my chair, ignoring the wet umbrella he had dropped on the floor. He reached for my hands. His hands were warm, familiar. They were the hands that had held mine at our wedding. "Babe," he whispered, looking deep into my eyes. "Why did you come here? I told you to rest. I told you I would handle everything." I looked at him. I looked at the man I loved. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't see my husband. I saw a stranger. A beautiful, dangerous stranger who had been sleeping in my bed, waiting for the right moment to suffocate me. I didn't pull my hands away. I let him hold them. I needed him to think he still had the power. "Tyler," I said softly. My voice was dry, raspy. "I'm here," he soothed, squeezing my fingers. "I'm here. We're going to go home, okay? We're going to get you your medicine, and you're going to sleep. Shh. Don't worry about the bill. Don't worry about Alyssa. It's all just confusion, remember? The doctor said this might happen." He was doing it. He was doing it right here, in front of everyone. He was rewriting reality. I looked over his shoulder. I saw Alyssa watching from the glass office. She was pressing a tissue to her dry eyes. "What doctor, Tyler?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Dr. Evans," he said without missing a beat. "Remember, last week, when you forgot where you parked the car? He said stress was affecting your memory. He said you might start imagining things, like conspiracies." He stroked my cheek with his thumb. It was a tender gesture. It made my skin crawl. "You think I'm imagining the sale of the house?" I asked. Tyler sighed, a sad, patient sigh. "Hannah, we didn't sell the house," he lied. He lied so smoothly it was almost art. "I just moved some assets around for tax purposes. Alyssa is helping us. She's holding the title in trust so we don't have issues with the bank. It's complicated finance stuff, honey. You don't need to worry your pretty head about it." Complicated finance stuff. Pretty head. He was using the exact same tone he used when we first met, when he explained the wine list to me. Back then, I thought it was sophisticated. Now I heard the condescension. "And the service fees?" I asked. "The £2,500? He paused, just for a fraction of a second. "I paid it, Hannah," he said. "I paid it this morning. There was just a glitch in their system. Ms. Dupree knows. It's all sorted." "Ms. Dupree said you haven't paid," I said. "She's mistaken," Tyler insisted, his smile tightening at the edges. "Look, let's not argue here. People are staring. You're making a scene, Hannah. You're embarrassing yourself." The trap was closing. If I argued, I was the crazy wife making a scene. If I agreed, I was admitting he was right. I slowly pulled my hands from his grip. "I'm not embarrassed, Tyler," I said. I stood up. He stood up with me, towering over me. He used his height to intimidate, stepping into my personal space. "Hannah," he warned, his voice dropping so low only I could hear it. The concern vanished, replaced by a hard edge. "Don't push this. Not here. Get in the car. Now." "Or what?" I asked. "Or I'll have to have you committed," he hissed. "For your own safety." The threat hung between us. Cold, brutal, explicit. He wasn't just stealing my house, he was threatening my freedom. I looked at him. I realized then that there was no saving this marriage. There was no talking it out. This was war. And in war, you don't show the enemy your weapons until you're ready to fire. I forced my shoulders to slump. I forced my eyes to look down. I feigned defeat. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, Tyler. I'm tired." The tension left his body instantly. He thought he had won. He thought the old Hannah, the compliant, trusting Hannah, was back. "That's my girl," he said, patting my shoulder. "Come on, let's get Alyssa. We'll all go to lunch. We can talk about this calmly." He turned towards the office and waved at Alyssa. "It's okay," he called out to her, his voice booming with false cheer. "She's calm now. Come on out, Allie." Alyssa stepped out of the office. She walked towards us, still clutching my bag, still wearing my coat. She looked at Tyler, then at me. She smiled tentatively. "Are you okay, Hannah?" she asked, her voice sickly sweet. "She's fine," Tyler answered for me. He put one arm around my waist and extended the other arm to Alyssa. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." He guided us towards the exit. His arm around me felt like a shackle. His arm around her looked like an embrace. As we walked past Mrs. Higgins, Tyler gave her a charming, apologetic nod. "Sorry about the noise, Mrs. Higgins," he said. "Hannah's been under a lot of stress lately. Work, you know." "I understand, Mr. Anderson," Mrs. Higgins said, looking at me with pity. "Take care of her." "I always do," Tyler said. We walked out into the rain. The cold air hit my face, waking me up. I walked between them. The husband who was betraying me, the cousin who was stealing my life. They thought they were leading a broken woman to the slaughter. They didn't know about the phone recording in my pocket. They didn't know that the house file had a digital backup in the cloud that Tyler didn't know about. And they didn't know that as I stepped into the gray London rain, I wasn't crying anymore. I was planning. The interior of Tyler's Range Rover smelled of leather, damp wool, and the lingering metallic scent of betrayal. It was a smell I used to associate with safety, the smell of being driven home after a long dinner, my head resting on his shoulder. Now it smelled like a cage. I sat in the passenger seat. My hands were folded in my lap, still and lifeless. I stared out of the window as London blurred past in streaks of gray rain and red brake lights. We were moving through the city, but I felt like I was moving through underwater currents, heavy and slow. Tyler was driving. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the road with a focused intensity that I recognized. It was his deal-closing face, the face he wore when he was about to land a client or bluff his way through a difficult negotiation. In the rearview mirror, I could see Alyssa. She was sitting in the back seat, directly behind Tyler. She had taken off the trench coat, my trench coat, and draped it over her legs like a blanket. She was typing furiously on her phone. The silence in the car was absolute. No radio, no conversation, just the rhythmic thwack hiss of the windshield wipers. "Are you warm enough, Hannah?" Tyler asked suddenly. He didn't turn his head. He reached out and turned up the heating dial on the dashboard. "I'm fine," I said. My voice sounded hollow. I kept my eyes on the rain. "We'll be home soon," he said, his voice dripping with that synthetic, soothing tone. "I'll make you some tea. Chamomile. And we still have those sleeping tablets Dr. Evans prescribed, right? You need to sleep, babe. You've had a psychotic break. Your brain needs to reset." A psychotic break. He was building the narrative brick by brick. He was saying it out loud to make it true. If he said it enough times, maybe even I would start to believe it. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I didn't pay the bill. Maybe I did sign the papers and forgot. For a terrifying second, doubt crept in. That is the power of gaslighting. It doesn't just make you question the liar, it makes you question the ground you stand on. But then, I looked at the side mirror. I saw Alyssa. She wasn't typing anymore. She was looking at the back of Tyler's head. Her expression wasn't one of concern for a sick relative. It was a look of hungry, possessive adoration. She reached out. Her hand, with those long, manicured nails, touched the shoulder of the driver's seat. She squeezed the leather near Tyler's neck. Tyler didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. He leaned back slightly, pressing his neck into her hand. It was a micro-movement, a reflex, a muscle memory of intimacy. Cousins don't touch like that. Cousins don't lean into each other's touch while the wife sits 2 feet away, supposedly having a mental breakdown. The doubt vanished. The cold clarity returned. I closed my eyes and leaned my head against the cool glass of the window. I needed them to think I was fading. I needed to be invisible. "I just want to sleep," I whispered. "I'm so tired, Tyler. Everything is foggy." "I know, baby," Tyler said. He sounded relieved. "Just close your eyes. We'll take care of you." We. The word hung in the air. The new unit. Tyler and Alyssa. The caretakers. The usurpers. The car turned into the underground garage of Kensington Heights. The darkness of the garage swallowed us. The automatic gates rumbled shut behind us, sealing us in. We took the lift up to the penthouse. The ride was silent. Alyssa stood close to Tyler. Too close. Their arms brushed against each other. They shared a quick glance when they thought I wasn't looking. A glance that said, "Almost there. Just a little longer." The lift doors opened directly into our apartment. Home. But it wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene where the crime hadn't been reported yet. "Go to the bedroom, Hannah," Tyler said gently, guiding me by the elbow. "I'll bring the tea." I walked into the master bedroom. The room was exactly as I had left it this morning. The bed was made. My perfume bottles were arranged on the vanity. It looked peaceful. It looked like a lie. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I didn't take off my shoes. I didn't take off my coat. I felt like a guest in a hotel room that I couldn't afford. I heard them in the kitchen, the clinking of a spoon against a ceramic mug, the sound of whispering. I stood up and walked softly to the door. The carpet muffled my footsteps. I pressed my ear against the wood, leaving a crack open just a millimeter. "She's totally out of it," Alyssa's voice drifted down the hallway. It was different now. The high-pitched, innocent girl voice was gone. She sounded harder, older. "Did you see her face in the lobby?" She actually believed she was seeing things for a second. "She's dangerous, Liz." Tyler's voice was low, urgent. "She recorded something. I saw her phone on the table." "So what?" Alyssa scoffed. "Who's going to believe her? You heard Mrs. Higgins. Everyone thinks she's cracking up. Once we get the doctor's note signed, her testimony is worthless." "We need that signature by Friday," Tyler said. "The bridge loan is due on Monday. If we don't liquidate this place by then, the guys from the casino aren't going to be polite anymore." My breath hitched in my throat. The casino. So that was it. It wasn't a failed business venture. It wasn't a bad investment in crypto. It was gambling. Good old-fashioned, destructive gambling. Tyler had gambled away our savings, and now he was gambling away my life to pay his debts. "Don't worry," Alyssa said. I heard the sound of a kiss, a wet, sloppy sound. "I'll get the pills. You just make sure she drinks the tea. 2 of the blue ones should knock her out for 12 hours. By the time she wakes up, we'll have the power of attorney notarized." "2?" Tyler asked. "Is that safe?" "Who cares?" Alyssa giggled. "If she doesn't wake up, it solves a lot of problems, doesn't it?" The blood in my veins turned to ice. They weren't just trying to steal the house. They were discussing my potential overdose as a solution. I backed away from the door. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst through my chest. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of this apartment immediately, but I couldn't just run. If I ran, they would catch me. Tyler was faster than me, and if I ran, I would leave with nothing but the clothes on my back. I would be the crazy wife running into the rain. I needed evidence. I needed leverage. I looked around the room. My eyes landed on Tyler's bedside table, his iPad. He usually kept it locked, but he often left it unlocked when he was charging it. It was plugged in now. I rushed over to the table. I tapped the screen. It lit up. Enter passcode. Damn it. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried Orzausen. Incorrect. My hands were shaking. I could hear footsteps approaching the bedroom. Hannah? Tyler called out from the hallway. Tea is ready. I threw the iPad back onto the nightstand and scrambled back to the bed. I sat down, hunched over, staring at the floor. The door opened. Tyler walked in, carrying a steaming mug of tea. He was smiling. A loving, concerned, husbandly smile. Here we go, he said softly, sitting down next to me. The mattress dipped under his weight. Drink this. It'll help you relax. I looked at the mug. The liquid was dark. Chamomile. But I knew what was dissolved in it. 2 blue pills, enough to make me sleep. Maybe enough to make me stop breathing. I took the mug, and my hands trembled. This time I didn't have to fake it. Thank you, I whispered. Drink up, he encouraged, watching me closely. His eyes were fixed on the rim of the mug. I lifted the mug to my lips. The steam hit my face. I needed a distraction. I needed 5 seconds. Tyler, I said, lowering the mug. Did you lock the front door? Yes, of course, he said impatiently. Drink. No, I said, widening my eyes in mock panic. I heard it open, just now. I heard the latch. You're imagining things, Hannah, he sighed. Please, I begged, grabbing his arm with my free hand. Please check. I'm scared. I think someone followed us. The man from the lobby. There was no man in the lobby, Tyler snapped. But the paranoia in his own life, the casino debts, the people he owed money to, made him susceptible. If he owed money to dangerous people, an unlocked door was a real threat. He hesitated. Then he stood up, frustrated. Fine, he growled. I'll check, but when I come back, you drink that tea. He turned and walked out of the room. As soon as he crossed the threshold, I moved. I didn't drink the tea. I poured it into the potted plant, a large fiddle-leaf fig, standing in the corner of the room. The dark liquid soaked into the soil instantly. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. I put the empty mug on the nightstand. Then, I lay down on the bed. I kicked off my shoes. I pulled the duvet up to my chin. I closed my eyes. I had to play dead, or at least play asleep. 2 minutes later, Tyler returned. I kept my breathing slow and shallow. I heard his footsteps stop by the bed. He picked up the mug. Good girl, he muttered. He stood there for a moment, watching me. I could feel his gaze on my face. I forced my eyelids to stay heavy, my muscles to go limp. Is she out? Alyssa's voice came from the doorway. She drank it all, Tyler said. Give it 20 minutes. She'll be a vegetable. Good, Alyssa said. Come on, we need to find her passport. The notary needs it. I think it's in the study, Tyler said. In the safe. Do you have the code? It's her birthday, Tyler laughed. She's so predictable. They walked out of the room. Their footsteps faded down the hall towards the study. I opened my eyes. I had 20 minutes, maybe less. I sat up. My head was clear. Adrenaline was pumping through my system like high-octane fuel. Her birthday. She's so predictable. The safe in the study contained my jewelry, my emergency cash, and my passport. But it also contained something else. Something Tyler had forgotten about. My old laptop, the one I used before I got the company MacBook. It was synced to our family cloud account. The account Tyler used for his backups. If I could get to the study before they emptied the safe, I was caught. If I left now, I left without the proof. But wait, Tyler's iPad was locked. But his Apple Watch? He had taken it off. It was sitting on the dresser, next to his cufflinks. He must have taken it off when he washed his hands in the bathroom earlier. I slipped out of bed and crept to the dresser. I picked up the watch. It was unlocked because it was still within range of his phone in his pocket. I tapped the message icon. There it was. A thread with Alyssa, new. I scrolled back. Just got the fake deed from the printer. It looks legit. She won't notice the difference. Sent 3 weeks ago. The guys from the Golden Chip are asking for the money again. They said if I don't pay by the 25th, they're coming for my kneecaps. Sent 1 week ago. Once she's committed, we sell the flat, pay the debt, and move to Spain. Just stick to the plan, babe. I love you. Sent yesterday. I didn't need the laptop. I had the smoking gun right here on a 2-inch screen. I took my phone out of my pocket. I took photos of the watch face. Click, click, click. Every damning message. Every timestamp. Damn it, where is it? Tyler's voice yelled from the study. He sounded angry. She moved the passport! Check the bottom drawer, Alyssa shouted. They were distracted. I put the watch back exactly where it was. I grabbed my bag. I grabbed my shoes. I didn't put them on. I held them in my hand to move silently. I crept into the hallway. The door to the study was ajar. I could see their shadows moving inside. They were tearing the room apart, looking for my passport. I didn't have my passport. It was in my bag. I always carried it with me since the Brexit regulations changed for work travel. I was predictable, but I was also prepared. I walked to the front door. My hand hovered over the latch. If I opened it, it would click. I looked back at the hallway. This was the apartment I had bought, the walls I had painted, the life I had built. I was leaving it all behind. I took a deep breath. I turned the latch. Click. It was loud. Too loud in the silent hallway. What was that? Tyler shouted from the study. The door! Alyssa screamed. I didn't wait. I threw the door open and sprinted into the corridor. Hannah! Tyler roared. I heard him running. Heavy, thudding footsteps on the hardwood floor. I reached the lift. I pressed the button. Nothing happened. The lift was on the ground floor. It would take too long. The fire escape. I pushed through the heavy fire door just as Tyler burst out of the apartment. Hannah, stop! He screamed. You're sick. You don't know what you're doing. I let the heavy fire door slam shut behind me. I heard his body hit it a second later, a dull thud against the metal. I ran. I ran down 25 flights of stairs. My stockinged feet slipped on the concrete. My lungs burned. But I didn't stop. I ran until I burst out into the service exit at the back of the building. The rain hit me instantly. Cold, hard, British rain. It soaked my hair, my clothes, my face. I didn't stop. I ran down the alleyway, splashing through puddles, clutching my bag to my chest. I reached the main road. A black cab was idling at the traffic light. I banged on the window. Please! I yelled. Please! The driver looked shocked. A woman in wet clothes, holding her shoes, looking wild. He unlocked the door. I threw myself into the back seat just as I saw Tyler running out of the main entrance of the building, scanning the street. Where to, love? The driver asked, eyeing me in the rearview mirror. I ducked down, hiding below the window line. Drive, I gasped. Just drive. Anywhere but here. The cab pulled away. I watched the figure of my husband shrink in the distance through the rain-streaked rear window. He was standing on the pavement, furious, defeated for the moment. I pulled my phone out. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I dialed Camille. She picked up on the first ring. Hannah? Did you sort out the bill? I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Camille, I said, my voice breaking. I need a lawyer. A criminal lawyer, and I need a place to sleep. Where are you? Camille asked, her voice instantly serious. I'm in a cab, I said. I'm free. I looked at the photos on my phone, the messages, the proof. And Camille? Yeah? They think I'm crazy, I said, staring at my own reflection in the dark glass. They think I'm weak. I wiped the rain from my face. The cold water felt like a baptism. They have no idea what I'm about to do to them. The black cab rattled over the cobblestones of Shoreditch. The East End of London was a different world from the polished, sterile silence of Kensington. Here, the streets were alive with graffiti, neon signs reflecting in the puddles, and the raw, chaotic energy of survival. It was messy, It was loud. It was exactly what I needed. The driver pulled up in front of a converted warehouse building. Before the wheels had even stopped rolling, the heavy iron door of the building swung open. Camille was there. She was wearing oversized sweatpants and a t-shirt that said Feminist Killjoy, holding a large umbrella. She didn't look like a savior. She looked like an angry Valkyrie. I fumbled with the door handle, my hands still shaking. I spilled out of the cab, shoeless, my stockings torn, my hair plastered to my skull. "Hannah!" Camille screamed, dropping the umbrella and rushing towards me. She grabbed me before I could collapse. Her arms were strong, warm, and solid. She smelled of expensive candles and hairspray. "I've got you," she whispered fiercely into my ear. "I've got you. You're safe." I paid the driver with a trembling hand, tapping my phone against the reader through the window, and let Camille drag me inside. We took the industrial lift up to the 3rd floor. Camille's loft was a sprawling space filled with half-finished paintings, vintage furniture, and the clutter of a creative mind. It was the polar opposite of my pristine, geometric prison in Kensington. "Sit," Camille commanded, pushing me onto a velvet sofa. She didn't ask questions, not yet. She ran to the bathroom and came back with a thick towel and a pair of woolly socks. "Put these on. I'm making tea. And by tea, I mean gin." I sat there, shivering, wrapping the towel around my shoulders. I looked at my feet. They were bruised and dirty from the run down the fire escape. They looked like they belonged to a stranger. 10 minutes later, I was dry, wearing one of Camille's hoodies and holding a glass of gin and tonic. My phone was on the coffee table between us. "Okay," Camille said, sitting cross-legged on the floor opposite me. Her face was grim. "Start from the beginning. And don't skip the part where you ended up barefoot in a taxi." I told her everything. I told her about the bill, the fake deed, the scene in the lobby, Alyssa wearing my coat, the car ride, the psychotic break narrative. When I got to the part about the tea, the 2 blue pills and the plan to overdose me, Camille stopped drinking. She set her glass down with a sharp clack. "They tried to kill you," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "They called it solving a problem," I corrected, my voice raspy. "They needed me unconscious so they could find my passport and forge the power of attorney." "Hannah, that is attempted murder," Camille said, her eyes widening. "We need to call the police, right now." "No," I said. Camille stared at me. "No? Are you insane? Tyler is dangerous. He has gambling debts to people who break kneecaps." "If I call the police now," I said, my mind working with a cold, mechanical precision. "What do I have? I have a story about a cup of tea that I poured into a plant. I have no toxicology report. I have no physical bruises. Tyler will tell them I'm having a mental breakdown. He has witnesses. Mrs. Higgins, Ms. Dupree. The police will file a domestic disturbance report and send me to a hospital for evaluation. That gives Tyler exactly what he wants. Time." I leaned forward. "I don't want to report him, Camille. I want to destroy him." I picked up my phone. I opened the photo gallery. "I have this," I said, turning the screen towards her. Camille leaned in. She swiped through the photos of the Apple Watch, the messages from Alyssa knew, the timestamps, the admission of the fake deed, the mention of the Golden Chip Casino, the plan to move to Spain. "Oh my God," Camille whispered. "He's not just a cheater. He's a con artist." "He's desperate," I said. "He owes money. Big money. That's his weakness. He's on a deadline. Monday." "Monday?" "The bridge loan," I explained. "He needs to sell the flat by Monday to pay off the sharks. If he doesn't, he's a dead man walking." I took a sip of the gin. The alcohol burned my throat, waking up my senses. "I need a lawyer, Camille, but not a family lawyer. I don't want someone who talks about mediation and division of assets. I need a shark. I need someone who eats men like Tyler for breakfast." Camille looked at me. A slow, wicked smile spread across her face. "I know a guy," she said. My dad used him when his business partner tried to screw him over in the 90s. His name is Elias Thorne. He's expensive, he's rude, and he's absolutely terrifying. Call him, I said. Elias Thorne's office was not in a glass skyscraper in the city. It was in a townhouse in Holborn, dark, wood-paneled, and smelling of old books and cigar smoke. It was 8 a.m. the next morning. I hadn't slept, but I was running on a strange, high-octane fuel of adrenaline and hatred. I was wearing a suit Camille had lent me, a sharp black Saint Laurent tuxedo suit that was slightly too big in the shoulders, making me look like I was wearing armor. Elias Thorne sat behind a mahogany desk that looked like a barricade. He was a man in his 60s, with silver hair, a face carved from granite, and eyes that looked like they had seen every sin humanity had to offer and found them boring. He listened to my story without interrupting. He didn't offer tea. He didn't offer sympathy. He just took notes with a fountain pen and a leather-bound notebook. When I finished, he tapped the pen against the desk. "So," Thorne said, his voice gravelly, "you are the wife, he is the husband, the mistress is the cousin, the flat is the asset, and the deadline is Monday." "Correct," I said. "And you have proof of the forgery?" "I have a photo of a text message admitting to it," I said. "And I have the original deed hidden in a safety deposit box at Barclays. I moved it there 6 months ago when I first noticed small withdrawals from our joint account. I replaced the one in the home file with a photocopy." Thorne stopped tapping. He looked at me with a flicker of interest. "You replaced the deed yourself?" he asked. "Yes," I said. I didn't suspect an affair then. I suspected he was bad with money. I wanted to protect the asset. "Smart," Thorne grunted. "Paranoid, but smart. That saves us a lot of time." He leaned back in his chair. "Here is the situation, Mrs. Anderson. The police are a blunt instrument. They take months. You don't have months. You have 48 hours before he tries to liquidate the asset fraudulently." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here." "We need to execute a Mareva injunction," Thorne said, the legal term rolling off his tongue like a weapon. "We freeze his assets worldwide. We freeze the apartment. We freeze his bank accounts. We freeze his car. We freeze the watch on his wrist." "Can we do that by Monday?" "I can do it by lunch," Thorne said without smiling. "But an injunction requires full disclosure. It means war. Once we file, he knows. He will be cornered. A rat in a corner bites." "Let him bite," I said. "I want his teeth to break." Thorne nodded. He seemed to approve of my lack of mercy. "What about the mistress? Alyssa Moore?" "She is listed as the new owner in the management system," I said. "But the land registry hasn't updated yet. It takes weeks." "Good," Thorne said. "Then she is currently an imposter. We will file a separate motion against her for fraud and impersonation. We will serve her at her place of work." "Where does she work?" "She doesn't," I said. "She's a struggling artist, but she spends all her time at a coffee shop in South Kensington called the Orangery. She holds court there." "We will serve her there," Thorne said. "Publicly. Shame is a powerful leverage." He opened a file. "One more thing, Mrs. Anderson. The debts. You said casino?" "The golden chip," I confirmed. "He owes them. He's terrified of them." Thorne paused. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "If we freeze the assets," he said slowly, "he cannot pay them. If he cannot pay them, they will hurt him. Physically. Perhaps fatally. Do you understand the consequences of locking the exit door while the building is on fire?" I thought about the blue pills in the tea. I thought about the way he looked at me in the lobby, like I was livestock to be slaughtered for cash. "I understand," I said. "And?" "And I hope they don't miss his kneecaps," I said. Thorne's lips twitched. It was almost a smile. "Very well," he said. "Sign here." By noon, the war had begun. I was back at Camille's loft. We had turned her dining table into a command center. Laptops open, phones charging, coffee brewing. We monitored the situation digitally. At 12:30 p.m., Thorne texted, "Injunction filed. High Court approved. Freezing orders are being served to the banks now. At 12:45 p.m., my phone rang. It was Tyler. I looked at the screen. The photo of him, smiling, holding a glass of wine, mocked me. "Don't answer," Camille said. "I have to," I said. "I need to hear the panic. I need to know it's working." I picked up. I put it on speaker. "Hannah?" Tyler's voice was breathless, but it wasn't the fake concern from yesterday. It was raw fear. "Hannah, where are you?" "I'm safe, Tyler," I said calmly. "Safe? You're—" "Hannah, listen to me. Something terrible has happened. My cards, my accounts, they're all declined. I'm at the bank. They say there's a court order. Did you do this?" "Did I do what, Tyler?" I asked innocently. "I'm just a confused woman having a psychotic break, remember? How could I file a high court injunction?" There was silence on the other end. Heavy, stunned silence. "You bitch," he whispered. The mask was gone completely now. "You think this is a game? You have no idea who you're messing with. You have to lift the order. Now! If I don't get that money—" "If you don't get that money, what?" I interrupted. "The golden chip will come for you?" He gasped. The sound was sharp, like he had been punched in the gut. How do you know that name?" "I know everything, Tyler," I said. "I know about the fake deed. I know about the blue pills in the tea. I know about the text messages to Alyssa. I know you're not just a liar, you're a criminal." "Hannah, please." His voice cracked. He switched tactics instantly, going from threats to begging. "Baby, please, you don't understand. They will kill me, literally kill me. I did this for us. I was trying to fix it. I just needed a bridge loan to win it back. I can win it back. I have a system." "You gambled our life away," I said. "And when you lost, you tried to kill me to cover your tracks. You tried to erase me. I wouldn't—" "Save it for the judge," I said. "Or the sharks. Whichever gets to you first." "Hannah, wait. Don't hang up. Alyssa, she made me do it. It was her idea. She said—" I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Of course she did," I said. "She's the villain, and you're just the innocent victim. Tell me, Tyler, when the police come for her for fraud, will you defend her, or will you sell her out like you sold me?" "Hannah—" I hung up. I looked at Camille. She was staring at me with awe. "You are terrifying," she said. "I'm just getting started," I replied. My phone pinged again. A text from Thorne. "Process server is en route to the orangery. Miss Moore is currently on the terrace having a latte. ETA 5 minutes. Do you want the video?" I typed back, "Yes." Camille brought her laptop over. "Is this happening? Are we watching this live?" "Thorne's assistant is live streaming it for evidence of service," I said. "Alyssa loves an audience. Let's give her one." We watched the grainy video feed on the laptop screen. There she was, Alyssa, sitting at a wrought iron table in South Kensington, wearing sunglasses, scrolling on her phone. She looked bored. She looked arrogant. She looked like she owned the world. A man in a cheap suit walked into the frame. He held a thick envelope. He approached her table. We couldn't hear the audio clearly, but we saw the interaction. He asked her name. She nodded, looking annoyed at the interruption. He dropped the envelope on the table. She looked confused. She opened it. She read the first page. Her hand flew to her mouth. She stood up, knocking her chair over. She started shouting at the man. The man just shrugged, pointed a finger at her chest, and walked away. People were staring. Phones were coming out. The mistress of the house was being served with a fraud lawsuit in the middle of high tea. Alyssa grabbed her phone and started dialing. My phone didn't ring. "She's calling Tyler," Camille guessed. "And Tyler is currently trying to figure out how to keep his kneecaps," I said. "He won't answer." I watched Alyssa on the screen. She looked around frantically. She looked trapped. For the first time in 24 hours, I felt a genuine emotion. It wasn't happiness. It was satisfaction. The scales were balancing. "Okay," I said, closing the laptop. "Phase 1 is complete. They are frozen. They are panicked. Now comes phase 2. What is phase 2? Camille asked, pouring us another round of gin. Tyler is going to try to come here, I said. He knows you're my only friend. He'll come here to beg or to threaten. We need to be ready. Let him come, Camille said, cracking her knuckles. I have a cricket bat and a lot of repressed rage. No violence, I said. We don't need violence. We have the truth, and the truth is much more painful. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the London skyline. Somewhere out there, in the rain, my husband was running out of time. Tomorrow, I said softly, we go back to the apartment. We do? Camille asked. Yes, I said. I'm not hiding in Shoreditch while they squat in my house. Tomorrow I take back my keys, and I'm bringing security. The morning sun over London was deceptive. It looked bright, promising warmth, but the air was razor sharp. It was the kind of cold that seeped through coats and settled in your bones. I stood in front of the main entrance of Kensington Heights. Yesterday, I had run out of these doors barefoot, weeping, a victim. Today, I returned in heels that clicked against the pavement like gunshots. I wasn't alone. To my left was Camille, wearing dark sunglasses and carrying a folded legal document like a weapon. To my right was Mr. Graves. He was a private security contractor Elias Thorne had recommended. He was 6'4", built like a refrigerator, and had a face that suggested he hadn't smiled since the 1990s. Behind us was a locksmith carrying a heavy tool bag. I walked up to the glass doors. The concierge, a young man named David, looked up. He saw me. He saw the entourage. His eyes widened. He reached for the phone. "Don't," I said through the intercom. My voice was distorted by the speaker, but the command was clear. David froze. He knew me. I had tipped him at Christmas. I had asked about his mother's surgery. He liked me. But he feared Tyler. "Mrs. Anderson," David stammered as the doors slid open. Mr. Anderson left strict instructions. He said you weren't allowed up. He said I was sick?" I finished the sentence for him, stepping into the lobby. The smell of lilies was still there, cloying and sweet. "Do I look sick to you, David?" David looked at my suit, the sharp tailoring, the impeccable hair, the cold, steady eyes. "No, ma'am," he whispered. "Good. Then you won't mind if we go up to my apartment. And David?" I paused by the desk. "If Mr. Anderson calls, tell him nothing. If he comes here, let him up. I want him to come to the door." David nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson." We took the lift. The ascent to the 25th floor felt different this time. It wasn't a journey home. It was a tactical deployment. The lift doors opened. We stepped into the private vestibule of apartment 17. The front door was closed. I reached for my keys. I knew they wouldn't work. Tyler would have changed the barrel yesterday, right after I ran. It was the first thing a usurper did, secure the castle. I slid the key in. It stopped halfway. Blocked. I turned to the locksmith. "Drill it," I said. The locksmith didn't ask questions. He pulled a high-powered drill from his bag. The sound was deafening, a high-pitched screech of metal tearing into metal. It echoed in the hallway, violent and necessary. It sounded like surgery without anesthesia. It took 3 minutes. The lock gave way with a final defeated crunch. The locksmith pushed the door open. I stepped inside. The apartment was quiet. The curtains were drawn, blocking out the sun. The air smelled stale, a mixture of stale champagne, cigarette smoke, and a perfume that wasn't mine. Chanel No. 5. Alyssa's scent. It hung in the air like a ghost. I walked into the living room. Clothes were scattered everywhere. My clothes, and they had been pulled out of the closets and thrown onto the floor, piled onto the sofas. It looked like a whirlwind had torn through my life. And there, asleep on my white Italian leather sofa, wrapped in my cashmere throw, was Alyssa. She was wearing one of Tyler's shirts, An empty bottle of expensive wine, my wine, a vintage Bordeaux I was saving for a promotion, sat on the coffee table next to a half-eaten pizza. The noise of the drill hadn't woken her. The wine and the pills must have done their job well. I stood over her. I looked at her slack face, her mouth slightly open. She looked young. She looked messy. Without the makeup, without the rich cousin act, she was just a girl sleeping in a house she couldn't afford, drinking wine she couldn't pronounce. I signaled to Mr. Graves. He stepped forward and kicked the heavy oak coffee table. Thud. Alyssa jolted awake. She sat up, gasping, clutching the throw to her chest. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. She saw me. For a second, she thought she was dreaming. She blinked. She rubbed her eyes. "Hannah?" she croaked. Her voice was thick with sleep and hangover. "Get up," I said. How did you get in?" She looked at the door, then at Mr. Graves. Fear washed over her face, instant and sobering. "Where is Tyler? Tyler?" "Tyler isn't here," I said. "Tyler is currently running around the city trying to find money that doesn't exist. You're alone, Alyssa." "You can't be here," she stammered, pulling the throw tighter. "This is my flat. I have the papers. Ms. Dupree said—" "Ms. Dupree is an administrator, not a judge," Camille stepped in, throwing the legal injunction onto the table, right on top of the pizza box. "And this is a high court writ. As of 12 p.m. yesterday, this property is frozen under a Mareva injunction. That means nobody sells it, nobody buys it, and nobody transfers it." Alyssa stared at the papers. She didn't understand the legal jargon, but she understood the tone. "I don't care!" she screamed, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "Get out! I'll call the police!" "Please do," I said calmly. "I would love for the police to come. I can show them the forged deed, and while they're here, they can arrest you for fraud, impersonation, and trespassing." I took a step closer. "You have two choices, Alyssa. Option A, you stay here, we call the police, and you leave in handcuffs. Option B, you pack whatever trash you brought into my house and you leave. Right now." Alyssa looked at me. She looked at the security guard. She realized Tyler wasn't coming to save her. She started to cry. But this wasn't the performance she gave in the lobby. This was real, ugly crying. The crying of a brat who had been caught. But I have nowhere to go," she sobbed. "Tyler promised. He said we were going to Spain." "Spain is canceled," I said coldly. "Start packing." I turned to Camille. "Get the bags." Camille pulled a roll of black, heavy-duty bin liners from her bag. She tossed one to Alyssa. "You have 10 minutes," Camille said. "Whatever isn't in a bag by then goes in the incinerator." Alyssa scrambled off the sofa. She tripped over the pile of clothes, my clothes, and fell to her knees. She didn't fight back. She didn't argue. She started grabbing her things, her cheap makeup bag, her phone, a pair of jeans, and shoving them into the bin liner. I watched her. I felt a strange detachment. I should have been angry seeing her in my home, but I just felt like an exterminator removing a pest. "Wait," I said. Alyssa froze, holding a shoe. "The coat," I said, "and the bag." She looked at the beige trench coat hanging on the coat rack, and the Chanel bag sitting on the dining table. "Tyler gave them to me," she whispered defiantly. "Tyler bought them with my money," I corrected. "Put them on the table, now." Slowly, reluctantly, she placed the bag on the table. She took the coat off the hanger and laid it down. "Good," I said. "Now get out." Alyssa dragged her black bin bag to the door. She looked pathetic. She was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, carrying her life in plastic. As she reached the door, she turned back. "He hates you, you know," she spat, trying to land one last blow. "He told me. He said you're like a robot, cold, frigid. He said living with you was like living in a bank vault." I looked at her. I didn't blink. "Maybe," I said, But at least I own the vault. You're just the thief who got locked inside." Mr. Graves stepped forward, effectively pushing her out into the hallway. "And Alyssa?" I called out. "Don't wait for him in the lobby. He's not coming for you. He's going to save himself." Mr. Graves slammed the door. Silence returned to the apartment. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My knees felt weak. I sat down on the sofa, pushing aside the spot where she had slept. "You were amazing," Camille said softly. "Like, terrifyingly amazing." "I need to change the locks again," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "He'll be here soon. He'll see the lock is drilled." "The locksmith is already installing a high-security deadlock," Camille said, "and Graves is staying at the door." I looked around the room. It was a mess. It was violated, but it was mine again. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I needed water. I opened the cupboard. That was when I saw it. On the counter, next to the coffee machine, was a small, crumpled piece of paper. A receipt. I picked it up. It was from a pharmacy in Notting Hill, dated 3 days ago. Item: Zolpidem, sleeping tablets, 20 mg. Customer signature: T. Anderson. My hand shook. This was physical proof. He hadn't just gotten them from Dr. Evans. He had bought them privately. High dosage. And underneath the receipt was a brochure, a glossy folded pamphlet. Sunny Days Care Home, specialized dementia and psychiatric care. I opened it. Inside, there was a handwritten note in the margin, in Tyler's handwriting. Deposit paid. Admission date, Friday 24th. I stared at the date. Today was Thursday the 23rd. He wasn't just going to commit me. He had already booked the room. He was going to drug me, drag me there tomorrow, and lock me away so he could sell the house on Monday. A wave of nausea hit me. I leaned over the sink, dry, heaving. "Hannah?" Camille rushed in. "What is it?" I handed her the brochure. Camille read it. Her face went pale. He had a reservation for you," she whispered in horror. "Like you were a dog being sent to a kennel." "He was going to erase me," I said, wiping my mouth. "He wasn't just stealing my money. He was stealing my life." Bang, bang, bang. The sound of a fist pounding on the front door echoed through the apartment. "Hannah!" It was Tyler. He was here. "I know you're in there," he screamed. His voice was muffled by the heavy wood, but the rage was palpable. "Open this door! You drilled the lock! You can't do that! This is my house!" I straightened up. The nausea vanished. It was replaced by a cold, burning fury. I looked at Camille. I looked at Mr. Graves, who had moved to block the entrance to the living room. "Let him in," I said. "Are you sure?" Graves asked, his hand moving to the baton on his belt. "Let him in," I repeated. "I want him to see." Mr. Graves unlocked the new deadlock. He opened the door. Tyler burst in. He looked like a madman. His suit was crumpled, his tie was loose, his hair was wet from sweat and rain, his eyes were bloodshot. He stopped when he saw Mr. Graves, a mountain of a man blocking his path. Then he looked past Graves and saw me. I was standing in the middle of the living room holding the brochure for the care home. "Hannah," he panted, trying to catch his breath. He tried to compose himself, tried to summon the charm, but it was broken. "Hannah, what are you doing? Who are these people?" "Get out," I said. "You can't kick me out," he laughed, a hysterical, jagged sound. "I live here. I'm your husband." "Not anymore," I said. "You're a trespasser and an attempted murderer." I held up the brochure. "Sunny Days Care Home," I read aloud. "Admission date. Tomorrow. Was that the plan, Tyler? A nice long nap for Hannah while you sold the roof over her head?" Tyler's face drained of color. He looked at the brochure, then at me. "You went through my things," he accused, his voice shaking. "I went through my house," I corrected, "and I found the receipt for the Zolpidem. The police will be very interested in that, combined with the tea I poured into the plant. We took a soil sample, by the way." It was a lie. We hadn't taken a soil sample yet, but Tyler didn't know that. He took a step back. He realized the walls were closing in. "You're bluffing," he sneered. "You won't go to the police. You're too proud. You don't want people to know your perfect husband played you for a fool." "I used to be proud," I said, walking slowly towards him. Mr. Graves tensed, ready to intervene, but I held up a hand. "I used to care about what people thought. But you cured me of that, Tyler. You cured me of a lot of things. Mostly, you cured me of loving you." I stopped 2 feet away from him. "The locks are changed," I said. "Your cards are frozen. Your mistress is gone. I threw her out with the rest of the trash. And your friends at the Golden Chip? I'm sure they're wondering where their money is." Tyler's eyes widened. The mention of the casino broke him. "Hannah," he whispered, his voice trembling with genuine terror. "You don't understand. If I don't pay them, they will kill me. Please, just unfreeze the account. Take the house, take everything. Just give me the cash in the joint account. There's 50,000 there. It's enough to buy me a week." He fell to his knees. The arrogant, handsome man was gone. In his place was a desperate junkie begging for a fix. "Please," he sobbed, reaching for my hand. "I'm begging you. They're going to break my legs." I looked down at him. I felt the weight of 5 years of marriage, 5 years of lies. I remembered the text. "Once she's committed, we move to Spain." I pulled my hand away. "I don't care about your legs, Tyler," I said softly. I turned to Mr. Graves. "Remove him." "No, Hannah, no!" Tyler screamed, as Graves grabbed him by the collar of his expensive suit. "You can't do this. I'm your husband. Hannah!" Graves dragged him backwards. Tyler kicked and screamed, clawing at the doorframe. "Hannah! They'll kill me! They'll kill me!" Graves threw him out into the corridor. Slam. The door closed. The lock clicked shut. I stood in silence. I could hear him pounding on the door, screaming my name, then eventually the sound of security from downstairs coming to take him away. I looked at the brochure in my hand. I crumpled it into a ball and dropped it into the bin. "Is it over?" Camille asked quietly. "No," I said, staring at the closed door. "He's desperate now. A desperate animal is the most dangerous kind. He won't stop, and neither will I." I walked to the window and looked down at the street. I saw Tyler being escorted out of the building by the building security. He was shoved onto the pavement. He looked around wildly, pulling at his hair. Then, I saw a black car pull up slowly across the street. The window rolled down. Tyler saw it too. He froze. He didn't run. He just stood there, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "The sharks are circling," I whispered. "The smell of bleach is the smell of forgetting. It is sharp, chemical, and overwhelming. It burns the inside of your nose and waters your eyes, but it is necessary." I spent the first hour after Tyler's eviction scrubbing. I scrubbed the kitchen counters where he had made his coffee. I scrubbed the floor where Alyssa had walked. I scrubbed the bathroom sink where his razor used to sit. Mr. Graves, my silent sentinel, stood by the door, watching the corridor. Camille was in the bedroom, stripping the bed. "Burn them," I said, walking into the room with a black bin bag. Camille looked at the high thread count Egyptian cotton sheets. "These cost 600 pounds, Hannah." "I don't care," I said. "She slept in them. He slept in them. Burn them. Or throw them in the dumpster. I never want to see them again." We bagged the sheets. We bagged the pillows. The room was stripped bare, down to the mattress. It looked like a cell. It looked clean. My phone rang. It was Elias Thorne. I sat down on the edge of the naked mattress to answer. "Mrs. Anderson." Thorne's voice was grave. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We have a problem. A significant one." "Did he try to contest the injunction?" I asked. "Worse," Thorne said. "We ran the deep credit check. The forensic accounting team found something buried in the sub-accounts of your husband's shell company." I gripped the phone tighter. "What did you find?" "Loans," Thorne said. "Unsecured, high-interest loans, but not from banks. These are peer-to-peer lending platforms and private equity firms that operate in the gray zone." "How much?" 500,000 pounds, Thorne said. The number sucked the air out of the room. 500? I couldn't finish the sentence. Tyler doesn't have that kind of credit. He's maxed out. He didn't use his credit, Thorne said softly. He used yours. I stood up. The room spun slightly. He used a digital copy of your passport and a forged signature, Thorne continued. He created a guarantor profile. You are the guarantor, Mrs. Anderson. Legally, if he defaults, which he has, you are liable for the £500,000. I walked to the window. I looked down at the City of London. It suddenly felt like a trap. And who are these lenders? I asked, fearing the answer. One of them is a holding company called GCG Enterprises, Thorne said. It stands for Golden Chip Group. It's the parent company of the casino. The Golden Chip. They weren't just street thugs breaking kneecaps. They were a corporate entity with lawyers and loan agreements signed in my blood. Can we prove fraud? I asked. We can, Thorne said. But it takes time. And these people, they don't wait for court dates. Mrs. Anderson, I strongly suggest you do not stay in that apartment tonight. It is the collateral listed on the loan. I'm not leaving, I said. If I leave, they win. I have security. Security guards are for burglars, Thorne warned. These are debt collectors, professional ones. Be careful. I hung up. I looked at Camille. She had stopped cleaning. She saw the look on my face. How bad? She asked. $500,000, I whispered. He forged my signature to guarantee his gambling debts. Camille dropped the bin bag. We need to go to the police. Now. This is identity theft on a massive scale. Thorne is drafting the affidavit, I said. But until then, buzz. The intercom on the wall buzzed. I stared at it. Mr. Graves? I called out. Check the camera. Graves walked to the monitor. It's a courier, Graves said. Motorcycle helmet, holding a package, small box. I didn't order anything, I said. He says it's for Mrs. Hannah Anderson, Graves reported. He says it's urgent legal documents. Let him leave it at the desk, I said. Do not let him up. Graves spoke into the intercom. Leave it with the concierge. We watched on the monitor as the courier handed a small brown box to David downstairs. Then the courier turned and looked directly into the security camera. He didn't wave. He just pointed 2 fingers at his eyes, then at the camera. I'm watching you. David brought the box up 5 minutes later. He looked terrified. He said to tell you the clock is ticking, Mrs. Anderson, David whispered, handing the box to Graves. Graves put the box on the dining table. He took out a scanner and swept it for explosives. Clean, he said. It's just electronics. He opened the box with a knife. Inside, sitting on a bed of black foam, was a single object. A cheap, disposable Nokia phone, a burner phone, and a note. Your husband says you have the keys to the vault. Pick up when it rings. As if on cue, the phone rang. The sound was shrill, mechanical, echoing in the silent apartment. Camille looked at me. Don't answer it. I have to, I said. I need to know who the enemy is. I picked up the phone. I pressed the green button. I put it on speaker. Hello? Mrs. Anderson, a voice said. It was smooth, male, with a slight Eastern European accent. It sounded like crushed velvet over gravel. My name is Mr. Varga. I believe you are holding something that belongs to me. I don't know who you are, I said, keeping my voice steady. You froze the accounts, Mr. Varga said calmly. Tyler tells us he cannot pay because his lovely, controlling wife has locked all the assets. He says you have the money. Tyler is a liar, I said. He doesn't have the money. And neither do I. He gambled it all away at your casino. That is an unfortunate perspective, Mr. Varga said. However, the paperwork says you are the guarantor. And since Tyler is, let's say, currently unavailable to fulfill his obligations, the debt passes to you. The paperwork is forged, I said. My lawyer is filing a fraud report with the police as we speak. Mr. Varga laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Police," he mused. "Mrs. Anderson, by the time the police verify handwriting samples, the interest on this loan will have doubled. I am a businessman. I prefer simple solutions. You have an apartment. It is worth, I believe, 1.5 million. Sell it. Pay us the 500. Keep the rest. Everyone is happy." "The apartment is frozen by the High Court," I said. "I can't sell it." "Unfreeze it," Varga said. His voice lost its smoothness. It became hard. "You have 24 hours. If the injunction is not lifted by noon tomorrow, we will assume you do not intend to pay, and then we will have to collect the debt in other ways." "Are you threatening me?" "I am advising you," Varga said. "Tyler is already experiencing our hospitality. He is very eager for you to cooperate. He is crying quite a lot, actually. It is embarrassing." My stomach turned. They had Tyler. "I don't care what you do to him," I lied. "We shall see," Varga said. "Noon tomorrow, or we come to visit you. And Mrs. Anderson, our visits are not as polite as a courier." Click. The line went dead. I stood there, staring at the cheap plastic phone. "They kidnapped him," Camille whispered. "They actually kidnapped him." "Or he went to them for protection and they turned on him," I said. "What do we do?" Camille asked. "Do we lift the injunction? Do we sell?" "No," I said firmly. "If I pay them 500,000, I am admitting the debt is real. I am validating the fraud. I will lose everything." I paced the room. I needed leverage. I needed something that scared Mr. Varga more than losing money. "Why did Tyler forge my signature?" I asked aloud. "Why not just steal the money? Why create a paper trail?" "Because he needed a guarantor," Camille said. "The casino wouldn't lend to him without security." "Exactly," I said, "which means there is a record, a ledger. Tyler isn't smart enough to do this alone. Someone helped him set up the fake profile, someone inside." Buzz. The intercom went off again. "Mrs. Anderson," David's voice came through, sounding exhausted. "There is a woman here. She says she knows you. She says it's an emergency." "Who is it?" I asked. "She says her name is Alyssa." I froze. Alyssa? Returning to the scene of her humiliation? "Tell her to go away!" Camille shouted. "Wait," I said. "Is she alone?" "Yes," David said. "And she looks hurt, ma'am." I looked at Graves. "Bring her up, but search her." 5 minutes later, the door opened. Alyssa walked in. Or rather, she limped in. She looked nothing like the arrogant girl on the terrace. Her lip was split. Her left eye was swollen shut, turning a sickly shade of purple. Her designer clothes were torn. She was shivering, clutching her side. "Oh my God!" Camille gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I didn't gasp. I stood still, watching her. "Did Tyler do this?" I asked. Alyssa nodded. She tried to speak, but started crying instead. She collapsed onto the floor, right where she had been sleeping earlier. He came to find me," she sobbed. "After you kicked him out. He was crazy. He said it was my fault. He said I didn't drug you fast enough. He wanted my car keys. He wanted my jewelry to pay the sharks." "And you gave them to him?" "I tried," she wept. "But it wasn't enough. He punched me. He took my car, and then he drove off to meet them. He said he was going to trade something for more time." "Trade what?" I asked, kneeling down beside her. "Alyssa, look at me. What did he trade?" Alyssa looked up with her one good eye. "The ledger," she whispered. "What ledger?" "The black ledger," Alyssa said. "He kept a copy, on a hard drive. It has everything. The names of the loan sharks, the illegal transfers, the names of the managers at the casino who helped him launder the money through your accounts. He was using it as insurance. Blackmail." My heart skipped a beat. "Where is the drive, Alyssa?" "He took it," she said. "He took it to them. He thinks if he gives it back to them, they'll forgive the debt." I stood up. I started laughing, a low, bitter laugh. "He's an idiot," I said. "He's walking into a lion's den holding a stake, thinking it will make them friends." If he gives them that drive, Camille realized, the evidence of the fraud disappears. They destroy it. And you're left with the debt. "Exactly," I said. "Without that ledger, it's my word against a signed contract." I looked at my watch. 4:00 p.m. "We need that drive," I said. "How?" Camille asked. "He's with Varga. He's probably in some basement in East London." "No," Alyssa said weakly. "He's not in East London. I tracked the car." We all looked at her. "You what?" "My car," Alyssa said, pulling her cracked phone out of her pocket. "It's a Tesla. It has an app. I can see exactly where it is." She held up the phone. A red dot pulsed on the map. It wasn't in East London. It was parked at a shipping yard near the Thames barrier. An industrial wasteland. "He's there," Alyssa said, "and the car is stationary." I looked at the map. Then I looked at Mr. Graves. "Mr. Graves," I said, "do you have a team?" "I can have 4 men ready in an hour," Graves said, his face grim. "But Mrs. Anderson, this is a extraction. It's dangerous. Police should handle this." "The police will surround the place, negotiate, and Varga will wipe the drive before they even breach the door," I said. "I need that drive intact." I walked to the closet, the one Alyssa hadn't completely emptied. I pulled out a pair of heavy boots and a thick coat. "I'm going," I said. "You are absolutely not going," Camille said, blocking my path. "You are a corporate manager, Hannah, not James Bond." "I am the only one who knows what the drive looks like," I lied. I didn't know what it looked like, but I needed to be there. I needed to see Tyler's face when he realized I had won. I turned to Alyssa. "You want revenge?" I asked her. "You want to pay him back for that eye?" Alyssa nodded slowly. "Then give me the access code to the Tesla," I said. "I can remotely control the locks, right?" "Yes," Alyssa said. "You can lock him inside." "Perfect," I said. I turned to Graves. "Call your team. We're going to the docks." I picked up the burner phone Mr. Varga had sent me. I put it in my pocket. I wasn't just fighting for my house anymore. I was fighting for my freedom. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the dark. I was becoming it. The shipping yards of East London are a graveyard of steel. Mountains of rusted containers stack against the gray sky, creating a maze of shadows and echoes. The air here tastes different: salt, diesel, and the rot of the Thames at low tide. I sat in the back of Mr. Graves's armored SUV. The windows were tinted, bulletproof, and cold against my forehead. Next to me, Alyssa was staring at her phone, her good eye fixed on the pulsing red dot. "He's stopped," she whispered. "He's right by the water. Warehouse 4. "That's the old dock," Graves said from the front seat. He was checking a tactical tablet. "It's a dead end. Perfect place for a drop. Or an execution." He turned to look at me. "Mrs. Anderson, once we go in, you stay in the car. My men will secure the target." "No," I said. I was surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. "The target isn't Tyler. The target is the hard drive. Tyler is just the delivery boy. If Varga sees your men, he'll throw that drive into the river. He needs to see me." "That's too dangerous," Graves argued. "Varga called me," I reminded him. "He wants a negotiation. He thinks I'm a scared housewife coming to pay a ransom. Let him think that until we're close enough to take what we need." Graves hesitated, then nodded. He handed me a small earpiece. "Put this in. If I say down, you drop to the ground. Do not hesitate. Do not look around. Just drop." I put the earpiece in. It felt cold and intrusive. "And Alyssa?" I turned to her. "The Tesla app. You have it ready?" Alyssa nodded, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Ready." "Good." The SUV rolled forward, lights off, moving like a shark through the dark water of the night. We parked behind a stack of blue Maersk containers, 50 yards from the meeting point. The rain was falling harder now, a curtain of static that blurred the world. "Move out," Graves whispered into his radio. 4 shadows detached themselves from the darkness behind us. Graves's team. They moved silently, disappearing into the maze. "Stay here," Graves told Alyssa. Then he opened my door. "Let's go." I stepped out into the mud. The wind whipped my hair across my face. I pulled my coat tighter, the heavy wool coat I had taken from the closet, not the trench coat Alyssa had defiled. We walked towards the open space near the riverbank. Under the harsh yellow glow of a single floodlight, I saw them. There were 3 cars, 2 black sedans, and the white Tesla Model S, Alyssa's car. Tyler was standing in the middle of the circle of light. He looked small. He was soaking wet, his expensive suit ruined, his posture hunched. He was clutching a silver hard drive to his chest like a holy relic. Facing him was a man in a long gray coat, holding an umbrella. He was flanked by 2 large men who looked like they were carved out of granite. That had to be Varga. "I don't have the cash," Tyler was shouting. His voice was thin, carried away by the wind. "But this is worth more. It has names, it has account numbers, it proves the laundering." Varga didn't move. He just watched Tyler with the bored expression of a man watching a fly struggle in a web. "You are trying to sell me my own secrets, Tyler?" Varga asked. His voice was exactly as I remembered it on the phone, velvet over gravel. "That is very brave and very stupid." "It's insurance," Tyler stammered, backing up towards the Tesla. "If anything happens to me, a copy goes to the police. I just want the debt cleared. Clear the debt, give me $10,000 for a flight, and you get the drive. I disappear. Everyone wins." "And where is your wife?" Varga asked. "I invited her." "She's not coming," Tyler yelled. "She doesn't care. She kicked me out. I'm the only one you can deal with." I stepped out from behind the container. "You're wrong, Tyler," I said loudly. The sound of my voice cut through the rain. Every head turned. Tyler spun around. His eyes went wide. "Hannah?" Varga smiled. It was a reptile's smile. "Mrs. Anderson," Varga said, bowing slightly. "So punctual. I appreciate that." I walked into the light. Graves was somewhere in the shadows, a ghost watching over me. I felt exposed, but strangely powerful. "I'm here for the drive," I said, ignoring Tyler. I looked straight at Varga. "And I'm here to tell you that this man does not speak for me. I am not paying his debt." "Hannah, shut up!" Tyler screamed. "Give me the drive and we can go. They'll kill us." "They won't kill me," I said calmly, "because I'm the one who can unfreeze the assets. You need me alive, Mr. Varga. Tyler is expendable." Varga chuckled. "She is colder than you described, Tyler. I like her." He took a step towards me. "So, the proposal is simple," Varga said. "You unfreeze the accounts. I take the drive, and I let your husband live. Do we have a deal?" I looked at the silver drive in Tyler's hand, the proof, the exit strategy. "I want the drive first," I said. "No!" Tyler clutched it tighter. "It's mine! It's my ticket out!" "Tyler, give her the drive," Varga commanded softly. "No!" Tyler panicked. He looked at Varga's men, then at me. He made a decision, a bad one. He turned and bolted for the Tesla. "I'm leaving!" he screamed. "I'm going to the police!" He reached the car. He grabbed the handle. "Now!" I whispered into my collar. In the SUV 50 yards away, Alyssa pressed a button. Click, clack. The Tesla's door handles retracted flush against the body of the car. Locked. Tyler yanked at the smooth metal surface. His fingers slipped. "Open!" he screamed, pounding on the window. "Open the damn door!" "Flash the lights," I commanded. The Tesla's headlights blinded him, and the horn started honking, a rhythmic, deafening alarm. Honk, honk, honk. Confusion erupted. Varga's men, startled by the noise and light, pulled guns from their coats. "Take him!" Varga shouted. "Down!" Graves's voice exploded in my ear. I dropped to the wet concrete instantly. Bang! Bang! Gunshots. Not from the Tesla, but from the shadows. Graves's team had opened fire to suppress Varga's men. The floodlight shattered, plunging the dock into semi-darkness, lit only by the strobing headlights of the Tesla. I scrambled on my hands and knees, mud soaking through my trousers. I kept my eyes on one thing: the silver drive. Tyler had dropped it when the first shot rang out. He was on the ground, crawling towards the edge of the dock, trying to get away from Varga's men. The drive was skidding across the wet concrete, coming to a rest near a rusted bollard, dangerously close to the water's edge. I crawled towards it. "Hannah!" I looked up. Tyler was dangling off the edge of the dock. One of Varga's men had grabbed his ankle, but the man had been shot in the shoulder and lost his grip. Tyler was slipping. Below him was the black, churning water of the Thames. "Hannah, help me!" he screamed. His eyes were terrified. He reached a hand out to me. I was 5 feet away from him. I was 5 feet away from the drive. I could reach his hand. If I lunged now, I could grab him. I could pull him up. But if I did that, Varga, who was currently taking cover behind the black sedan, would see the drive. He would get to it first. Or worse, in the struggle to save Tyler, the drive would be kicked into the river. "Hannah!" Tyler begged. "Please, I'm sorry. I love you." "I love you." The words echoed in my head. I remembered the blue pills. I remembered the fake deed. I remembered once she's committed, we moved to Spain. He didn't love me. He loved the safety I provided. He was drowning, and he wanted to use me as a life raft one last time. I looked at him. The rain washed down my face, mixing with the tears I didn't know I was crying. "I know," I whispered. I turned away from him. I lunged for the drive. My fingers closed around the cold metal casing just as a boot stomped down inches from my hand. I rolled onto my back, clutching the drive to my chest. It was Varga. He was standing over me, a pistol in his hand. "Give it to me," he hissed. Crack. A single shot rang out from the darkness. A sniper shot. Varga jerked. His gun clattered to the ground. He grabbed his leg and collapsed, howling in pain. Graves stepped out of the shadows, his weapon raised. "Secure!" Graves shouted. The chaos ended as quickly as it had begun. Varga's men were down or fleeing. Varga was writhing on the ground, and the edge of the dock was empty. I sat up. I scrambled to the edge. I looked down. The water was black and silent. There were ripples, fading into the current, but no head bobbing, no hand reaching up. Tyler was gone. "He fell," Graves said, appearing beside me. He shone a flashlight into the water. Nothing. The current at this part of the Thames was notoriously strong. Or he jumped. I stared at the water. I felt numb. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just heavy. I looked at my hand. The silver hard drive was there. Dented, wet, but intact. My freedom. "Mrs. Anderson," Graves said gently. "We need to go. The police are 2 minutes away. We called them." "He called my name," I whispered. "He made his choices," Graves said. He reached down and helped me up. "You made yours." We walked back towards the SUV. The Tesla was still honking its alarm, a pathetic, mechanical heartbeat in the night. Alyssa jumped out of the SUV as we approached. She looked past me, looking for Tyler. "Where is he?" she asked. "Where is Tyler?" I stopped. I looked at the girl who had tried to steal my life. I held up the hard drive. "This is all that's left," I said. Alyssa looked at the drive, then at the empty darkness behind me. She understood. She covered her mouth with her hand, but she didn't scream. She knew, deep down, that Tyler was always going to end up this way. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Blue lights flashed against the shipping containers. "Get in the car," Graves ordered. "We leave before the circus starts. My team will handle the statement. You were never here." I climbed into the back seat. The leather was warm. I looked out the window as we drove away. I saw the police cars swarming the dock. I saw the ambulance lights. I clutched the drive. I had won. I had my house. I had the evidence to clear my name. I had destroyed the debt. But as I watched the rain streak against the glass, I realized something had broken inside me that could never be fixed. The Hannah Anderson who believed in love, in marriage, in the safety of a shared life, she had fallen into the water with Tyler. The woman sitting in the car was someone else. I took out my phone. I texted Elias Thorne. "I have the ledger. Tyler is gone. Proceed with the fraud filing." I hit send. Then I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. The silence finally returned. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was empty. Perfectly, terrifyingly empty. The police station in Wapping was a building designed to drain the color out of the world. The walls were painted a shade of institutional beige that smelled of floor polish and despair. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a low, angry hum, like trapped insects. I sat in interview room 3. I was wrapped in a gray wool blanket that a female constable had given me. My clothes were still damp from the rain at the docks. My hands, resting on the metal table, were scrubbed clean of the mud, but I could still feel the phantom grit under my fingernails. Next to me sat Elias Thorne. He looked as impeccable as ever, his suit uncreased despite the hour. He was reading a file, his face a mask of bored professionalism. Across the table sat Detective Inspector Miller. He was a tired man with dark circles under his eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. "Let's go over it one more time, Mrs. Anderson," D.I. Miller said, clicking his pen. "My client has already given her statement, Inspector," Thorne interjected smoothly, not looking up from his file. "She went to the location to retrieve stolen property, specifically a hard drive containing evidence of fraud committed against her. She was accompanied by private security licensed for close protection. When the altercation between Mr. Anderson and the criminal element known as Varga began, she took cover. Mr. Anderson fell. It was a tragic accident during a criminal transaction." D.I. Miller looked at me. He ignored Thorne. "Is that how you saw it, Mrs. Anderson? An accident?" I looked at the two-way mirror on the wall. I saw my own reflection. Pale, hollow-eyed, but alive. "I saw a man running from his mistakes," I said softly, "and the ground ran out." Miller sighed. He closed his notebook. "We have Varga in custody," he said. "He's at the Royal London Hospital with a shattered femur. He's singing like a canary to cut a deal. He confirms your husband was trying to sell the drive to clear a gambling debt." "And the drive?" I asked. "Tech support is decrypting it now," Miller said. "But from the preliminary scan, it's a gold mine. Money laundering, illegal loans, identity theft. Your husband was busy." "And Tyler?" I asked. The name felt strange on my tongue, like a word from a dead language. Miller hesitated. He glanced at the clock. "The Marine unit has been sweeping the river for 6 hours," he said gently. "The current at that bend is strong, Mrs. Anderson, and the water is freezing. Survival time is measured in minutes, not hours." He didn't say the word dead. He didn't have to. "We haven't found a body yet," Miller finished, "but we are treating it as a recovery operation, not a rescue." I nodded. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't grief. It was a release of pressure. The balloon had popped. "Am I free to go?" I asked. "For now," Miller said. "We'll need you for the fraud trial against Varga. And there's someone else who wants to see you." "Who?" "Miss Moore," Miller said. "She's in the waiting room. She gave a full statement corroborating your account. She's pretty shaken up." I looked at Thorne. He gave a small shrug. "Up to you." "I'll see her," I said. The waiting room was crowded with the debris of London's nightlife, drunks, petty thieves, and tired relatives. Alyssa sat in the corner, huddled in a plastic chair. She looked like a child wearing a costume that was too big for her. The bruise on her eye had bloomed into a grotesque purple flower. She was holding a styrofoam cup of tea with both hands to stop them from shaking. When she saw me, she stood up. She looked terrified. I walked over to her. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate requires energy, and I had none left. I just felt a distant pity. "Did they arrest you?" I asked. "No," Alyssa whispered. "Mr. Thorne, he cut a deal. I testify against Varga and confirm Tyler's fraud, and I get immunity for the impersonation charge." "Thorne is a good lawyer," I said. "Why?" Alyssa asked, tears spilling over. "Why did you help me? I tried to steal your house. I slept with your husband." "You were a pawn, Alyssa," I said. "Tyler used you just like he used me. He just used different lies. For me, it was stability. For you, it was adventure. We both bought it." Alyssa wiped her nose on her sleeve. "He called out for you," she said. Her voice broke. "At the edge, I heard him. He screamed your name." "I know," I said. "You could have saved him," Alyssa said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a question that haunted her. "You were close enough." I looked at the vending machine humming in the corner. I thought about the moment on the dock, and the choice, the hand or the drive. "If I had saved him," I said slowly, "he would have pushed me in." Alyssa stared at me. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to defend the man she loved. But she remembered the punch to her eye. She remembered him stealing her car. She remembered him leaving her to face the sharks alone. She nodded. She knew I was right. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Go back to Leeds," she said. "My parents, they don't know about any of this. I'll tell them I failed in London, that the city was too big for me." "It was," I said. I opened my bag, the leather bag that was still stained with rain, and pulled out an envelope. Thorne had given it to me earlier. It contained £500 in cash. Emergency money. I handed it to her. "Take this," I said. "I can't," Alyssa pulled back. "I can't take your money." "It's not a gift," I said. "It's a train ticket. Buy a ticket to Leeds, one way. Leave today. If I ever see you in London again, Alyssa, I won't be this kind." She took the envelope. Her fingers brushed mine. Her hand was cold. "I'm sorry, Hannah," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Goodbye, Alyssa." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I heard the automatic doors of the station slide open, and I stepped out into the morning. The rain had stopped. The sun was rising over the skyline, painting the wet streets in gold. It was a beautiful, crisp London morning, the kind of morning that makes you believe in fresh starts. Camille's car was waiting at the curb. She jumped out and hugged me. "It's over," she said into my hair. "Thorne just texted me. The bank confirmed the fraud report. The debt is null and void. The house is yours, free and clear." "Take me home, Camille," I said. The apartment was silent. Not the heavy silence of secrets, nor the empty silence of the docks. This was a dead silence. The door still had the marks from the drill. The living room was still scattered with the black bin bags of Alyssa's things that we hadn't thrown out yet. I walked into the center of the room. I looked at the spot where Tyler used to stand and mix cocktails. I looked at the chair where he used to sit and read the Financial Times, pretending to be a master of the universe. I felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. I felt the space. For 5 years, this apartment had been filled with his presence, his voice, his cologne, his ego. It had taken up so much room that I had squeezed myself into the corners of my own life. Now, he was gone, and the space was terrifyingly vast. I walked to the balcony doors and opened them. The wind rushed in, blowing the curtains wild. It smelled of the river. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Hannah?" Camille asked from the doorway. She was holding a box of cleaning supplies. "Where do you want to start?" I turned around. I looked at the expensive Italian sofa. I looked at the custom-made dining table. I looked at the crystal chandelier. "Sell it," I said. "Sell what?" Camille asked. "The sofa?" "Everything," I said. "The furniture, the art, the rugs, the curtains, even the dishes." "But you loved this stuff," Camille said. "You spent months choosing that table." "I chose it for a life that was a lie," I said. "I can't sit on that sofa without seeing Alyssa sleeping on it. I can't eat at that table without remembering the fake deed sitting on it. I walked over to the wall and took down a painting, a modern abstract piece Tyler had claimed was a good investment. I flipped it over. There was a sticker on the back from a gallery in Mayfair. "Call an auction house," I said. "Tell them to clear the flat. Whatever they can't sell, donate to a women's shelter." "And the flat?" Camille asked. "What about the apartment?" I looked at the view I had worked 10 years to afford, the view that was supposed to be my trophy. "Put it on the market," I said. "Hannah, are you sure? It's your home." "No," I said. "It's a crime scene. I can't heal here. The walls have eyes. They saw me being gaslit. They saw me being drugged. I need walls that don't know my name." I walked into the bedroom, the empty, stripped bedroom. I opened the safe. It was empty, except for one thing, a small velvet box. My wedding ring. I had taken it off before I went to the docks. I hadn't put it back on. I picked it up. The diamond caught the light. It was beautiful. It was cold. It was sharp. I walked out to the balcony. I held the ring over the railing. Below me, 25 floors down, the city moved on. The red buses, the black cabs, the tiny people rushing to work. "Don't do it," a voice in my head said. "It's worth £10,000. Sell it." That was the old Hannah, the practical Hannah, the CFO of the family. But the new Hannah didn't care about the ROI. She cared about the symbolism. I opened my fingers. The ring fell. It didn't glitter as it fell. It just disappeared. A tiny speck of carbon returning to the concrete jungle. I didn't hear it hit the ground. It was too far down. I stood there for a long time, watching the spot where it had vanished. "Goodbye, Tyler," I whispered. I turned back to the room. Camille was watching me. She was smiling, a sad, proud smile. "Okay," she said. "Let's burn this life down." 2 weeks later. The apartment was a white box. We had cleared everything. There was not a single stick of furniture left. The floors were bare, gleaming polished oak. The walls were pristine cream. It looked bigger. It looked brighter. I stood by the door with the estate agent, a bubbly woman named Sarah. "It's a stunning property, Mrs. Anderson," Sarah gushed. "We already have 3 offers above asking price. The market is hot for these river views." "That's good," I said. "Are you sure you want to leave the curtains?" Sarah asked, pointing to the only thing left in the room, the heavy velvet drapes. "Yes," I said. "The new owners might want some privacy." I signed the contract on her tablet. Hannah Anderson. The signature was firm, strong. "Congratulations," Sarah said. "You've sold in record time." "I'm good at cutting losses," I said. I handed her the keys. The new keys. The ones that didn't stick. "Thank you, Sarah. Lock up for me." I picked up my bag. It was a new bag, not Chanel. A simple, sturdy leather tote from a local artisan. I walked to the lift. I didn't look back at the apartment. There was nothing there to see. The ghosts had been evicted. I took the lift down to the lobby. Ms. Dupree was there, behind her glass desk. When she saw me, she stiffened. She looked down at her papers, pretending to be busy. She was afraid of me now. The whole building was afraid of the widow Anderson who had taken down a crime syndicate and walked away. I walked past her without a word. I pushed open the main doors. Outside, a moving van was waiting. Not for me. I had only 2 suitcases. It was for the new life I was building. Camille was leaning against her car, waiting. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," I said. "Where to?" I looked at the map on my phone. I had rented a small cottage in the Cotswolds for 6 months. Something quiet. Something with a garden. Something far away from the river and the casinos. "Drive," I said. "Just drive." As the car pulled away from Kensington Heights, I looked in the side mirror. The building rose up like a tombstone of glass and steel. And then we turned a corner, and it was gone. I rolled down the window. The air rushed in. It didn't smell of lilies or bleach. It smelled of exhaust fumes and wet pavement and coffee. It smelled like freedom. The Cotswolds is a place where time moves differently. In London, time is measured in billable hours, train schedules, and deadlines. Here, in the village of Bibury, time is measured in the changing color of the leaves and the length of the shadows on the stone walls. I rented a cottage called the Weaver's House. It was small, built of honey-colored limestone, with a roof that sagged slightly under the weight of 300 years of history. It sat at the end of a narrow lane, bordered by a stream that ran clear and cold over smooth pebbles. It was the quietest place I had ever known, and for the first week the silence terrified me. I would wake up at 3:00 a.m., my heart hammering against my ribs, expecting to hear the buzz of the intercom or the hum of the elevator. But there was only the wind in the chimney and the distant hoot of an owl. I couldn't sleep. When I closed my eyes, I didn't see the green hills of the countryside. I saw the black water of the Thames. I saw Tyler's hand reaching out. I saw the silver hard drive sliding across the wet concrete. "Save me." The voice was always clear in the dream. Sometimes it was Tyler's voice. Sometimes it was my own. I developed a routine to fight the ghosts. Routine is the armor of the traumatized. 7:00 a.m. Wake up. 7:15 a.m. Make tea. Loose leaf. No coffee. Coffee made my hands shake. 7:30 a.m. Run. I ran through the fields, pushing my body until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead. I ran until I was too exhausted to think. I ran away from London, but I knew London was still inside me, curled up like a dormant virus. One Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after I arrived, I was in the garden. The garden was a mess of overgrown brambles and nettles. The previous tenant had let it go wild. It looked like my life, chaotic, thorny, and in need of a severe pruning. I bought a pair of heavy leather gloves and a spade from the village hardware store. I decided I would clear it. Not because I liked gardening, I had never gardened in my life, but because I needed to destroy something. I was hacking away at a thick root of ivy that was strangling an old rose bush. I swung the spade with a violence that surprised me. Thwack. Take that, Tyler. Thwack. Take that, Varga. Thwack. Take that, Alyssa. You'll blunt the blade if you hit the stone like that, a voice said. I spun around, clutching the spade like a weapon. A man was standing by the low stone wall that separated my garden from the lane. He was tall, wearing a thick knitted sweater with holes in the elbows and muddy Wellington boots. He had a face that was weathered by wind and sun, lines etched deep around his eyes. He looked to be in his 40s. He held up his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Easy," he said, his accent thick and rolling, a soft West Country burr. "I didn't mean to startle you. I'm your neighbor, Liam. I live in the barn conversion up the hill." I lowered the spade slowly. My heart was racing. "I didn't hear you coming," I said. "I walk quiet," Liam said. He pointed at the ivy. "That's bindweed. Nasty stuff. If you just chop the top, it comes back stronger. You have to dig out the root. Gently. If you break it, it multiplies." If you break it, it multiplies. It sounded like a metaphor for trauma. "I don't know how to do it gently," I said. "I only know how to chop." Liam smiled. It was a slow, kind smile. He didn't look at me with pity. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know I was the Black Widow of Kensington, as one tabloid had called me. To him, I was just a city woman struggling with weeds. "Do you want a hand?" he asked. "No," I said quickly. "I can manage." "Fair enough," Liam nodded. "But if you change your mind, I have a rotavator in my shed. Makes short work of the hard earth." He tipped his imaginary hat and walked away, whistling a tune. A black Labrador trotted after him, wagging its tail. I watched him go. A normal man. A normal life. I turned back to the ivy. I knelt down in the mud. I put down the spade. I used my hands. I dug my fingers into the cold, wet earth. I felt for the root. It was deep, twisted, stubborn. I pulled. It resisted. I pulled harder. My fingernails broke. The dirt got under my skin. I pulled until I was crying. I wasn't crying about the weed. I was crying because for the first time in months, I was touching something real. Not a contract, not a phone screen, not a steering wheel. Just dirt. Simple, honest dirt. I sat back on my heels, holding the long white root in my hand. I had won. "Okay," I whispered to the empty garden. "Okay." That night, the storm came. It wasn't a gentle country rain. It was a gale coming off the Atlantic. The wind howled around the cottage, rattling the window frames like someone trying to break in. The rain lashed against the glass in sheets. I was in the living room, reading a book I couldn't concentrate on. Bang! A shutter outside slammed against the wall. I jumped, dropping the book. Bang! It sounded like a gunshot. It sounded like the shot that took Varga down. My breath hitched. The room suddenly felt small. The air felt thin. I stood up. I needed to fix the shutter. I needed to stop the noise. I opened the front door. The wind hit me instantly, soaking my clothes, blowing my hair into my face. It was dark, pitch black. I stepped out into the storm. I wrestled with the wooden shutter, trying to latch it. The wood was slippery. My hands were shaking. Honk. I froze. I heard a car horn. I looked down the lane. There was nothing there. Just darkness and rain. Honk. Honk. It was the Tesla alarm. I heard it clearly. I spun around. "Tyler?" I screamed. There was no one. Just the wind screaming through the trees. "I know you're there!" I yelled into the dark. "Leave me alone!" I was hallucinating. I knew I was. But the fear was biological. It was adrenaline flooding my system, telling me to run, to fight, to hide. I fell back against the stone wall of the cottage. I slid down until I was sitting on the wet doorstep, hugging my knees. I closed my eyes and covered my ears. "He's gone," I chanted. "He's gone. He's gone." But the image of the black water wouldn't leave. I saw him sinking. I saw his eyes, wide, terrified, accusing. "You chose the drive. You chose the money." "I chose my life!" I screamed back at the voice in my head. I sat there in the rain for 20 minutes, shivering, until the panic attack began to recede. The adrenaline faded, leaving me cold and exhausted. I stood up. I went inside and locked the door. I bolted it. Then I pushed a heavy oak chair against it. I went to the bathroom. I stripped off my wet clothes. I stepped into the shower. I turned the water to hot, scalding hot. I stood under the spray until my skin turned red. I wanted to wash the feeling of the rain off me. I wrapped myself in a towel and went to the kitchen. I made tea. I sat at the small wooden table. My laptop was sitting there, the new laptop I had bought in the village. It was pristine, untouched. I opened it. The screen glowed white, a blank page. Camille had told me once, "If you can't speak it, write it. A paper doesn't judge." I put my fingers on the keys. I didn't know where to start. Did I start with the bill? Did I start with the wedding? Did I start with the moment I met Tyler? No. I started with the truth. I typed. The first time I realized my marriage was a crime scene, it was raining. I stared at the sentence. It was true. I typed again. We are taught that love is a shield. We are taught that if we build a fortress of success, of money, of stability, we are safe. But sometimes the enemy isn't outside the gate. Sometimes the enemy is holding the key. The words started to come. Slowly at first, then faster. I wrote about the silence in Kensington. I wrote about the smell of lilies. I wrote about the way Tyler smiled when he lied. I wrote about Alyssa's coat. I wrote about the cold weight of the hard drive in my hand. I wrote until the sun came up. When I finally stopped, my coffee was cold. I had written 5,000 words. I read them back. It wasn't a diary. It wasn't a confession. It was a story. It was my story, but viewed from a distance. By turning it into words on a screen, I had taken it out of my head. I had trapped the ghost in the machine. I felt lighter. The next day, the sun returned. The storm had stripped the trees of their dead leaves, leaving the branches bare and clean. I was walking to the village to buy milk. I passed the stone barn on the hill. Liam was outside, working on an old wooden gate. He was sanding it down. He looked up and saw me. "Morning," he called out. "Survived the storm?" I stopped. I thought about lying. I thought about saying, "Yes, I slept through it." But I was done with lies. "Barely," I said. "I spent half the night sitting on my doorstep in the rain, scared of a ghost." Liam stopped sanding. He looked at me. He put the sandpaper down. "Ghosts don't like the Cotswolds," he said gently. "Too much mud. They get their sheets dirty." I laughed. It was a genuine laugh, a small, rusty sound, but it was real. "I'm Hannah," I said. "I know," Liam said. "Postman told me. You're the lady from London who bought all the firewood." "I get cold easily," I said. "Well," Liam said, wiping his hands on a rag, "if you ever need to chase a ghost away, I have some cider in the barn. It's strong enough to exorcise a demon." "Maybe one day," I said. "Gate's always open," he said. I walked on towards the village. I didn't feel healed. I didn't feel fixed. The nightmares would probably come back tonight, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I was treading water, and the shore was visible. 3 months later. The garden was transformed. The bindweed was gone. In its place, I had planted tulips, hundreds of them. They were just starting to push their green shoots through the soil. I was in the kitchen, cooking. A simple stew. My phone rang. It was Camille. "Hey," she said. "How is the hermit life?" "It's good," I said. "I made bread today. It's actually edible." "Miracles happen," Camille laughed. "Listen, I have some news. From London." I stirred the stew. "Tell me." "They found him," Camille said softly. I stopped stirring. "Tyler?" "Yes. A fisherman found a body near the estuary. Dental records confirmed it this morning." I stood still. I waited for the grief. I waited for the panic. But there was only a quiet sadness, a distant echo of a tragedy that happened to someone else. "Okay," I said. "The police are closing the file," Camille said. "Accidental death. No charges against anyone. It's over, Hannah. Officially." "It was over a long time ago, Camille," I said. "Are you coming back for the funeral?" she asked. "His parents are organizing a small service." I thought about it. I thought about standing by a grave, wearing black, pretending to mourn a man who had tried to destroy me. "No," I said. "I've already said my goodbye." "I thought you'd say that," Camille said. "So, what now? Are you staying in the Shire forever?" "I don't know," I said. "I like it here." "I'm writing, Camille." "Writing what?" "A screenplay," I said. "About a woman who wakes up." Camille laughed. "Is the main character a badass who breaks into her own house?" "Something like that," I smiled. "But the ending is different." "How does it end?" "She doesn't find a prince," I said. "She finds herself." We hung up. I turned off the stove. I poured a glass of wine. I walked out into the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and gold. I looked at the tulip shoots. They were fragile, but they were pushing through the hard earth with a relentless determination. I heard a whistle from the lane. It was Liam walking his dog. He saw me and waved. "Firewood delivery tomorrow?" he called out. "Yes, please," I called back. "And maybe I'll try that cider." Liam smiled. "It's a date. Well, not a date, a cider date." "A cider date sounds fine," I said. He walked on. I took a sip of wine. Tyler was found. The book was closed. I was 33 years old. I had scars on my heart and a story in my laptop. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I looked at the horizon. "Rest in peace, Tyler," I whispered. "I forgive you. Not for you. For me." I turned around and walked back into the warm, lighted cottage. I closed the door, locking out the cold night, and for the first time in a year, I didn't check the lock twice. 1 year later, London in the autumn is a city of gold and smoke. The plane trees in the parks turn a deep, burnished yellow, and the air smells of roasted chestnuts and distant rain. I sat in the back of a black cab, but this time I wasn't shoeless. I wasn't running. I was wearing a cream silk blouse and tailored trousers. My hair was longer, tied back loosely. I looked out the window at the passing streets, Shoreditch, Holborn, the Strand. The city hadn't changed. It was still a monster of concrete and ambition. But I had changed. The monster no longer frightened me. I knew its teeth. "Here we are, love," the driver said. He pulled up in front of a small, elegant bookstore in Marylebone. Daunt Books. The windows were filled with warm light. In the center of the display window, there was a pyramid of books. The cover was simple, a white background with a single, jagged crack running through it, filled with gold leaf. The title? The Fracture of Silence. The author? H. Anderson. I paid the driver and stepped out. My heart gave a small flutter, not of panic, but of anticipation. A good kind of nervous. The door opened and Camille burst out. She looked radiant in a red dress, holding a glass of champagne. "You're late!" she cried, hugging me so hard I almost lost my balance. "The place is packed. People are actually sitting on the floor." "I hit traffic," I smiled. "London traffic never changes." "Are you ready?" Camille asked, pulling back to look at me. She searched my eyes, looking for the old shadows. "I'm ready," I said. We walked inside. The smell of old paper and new ink hit me. It was a comforting smell. The room fell silent as I entered. 50 faces turned towards me. Strangers, friends, people who had read the story of the woman who poured tea into a plant and broke into her own life. I walked to the small podium at the back of the room. I placed my hand on the stack of books. They felt solid, real. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. My voice was steady. "Thank you all for coming." I opened the book to the last chapter. "People ask me if this story is true," I began. "They ask if the husband really fell, if the wife really chose the hard drive, if the silence really broke." I paused. I looked at a woman in the front row. She looked like I did a year ago, tired, anxious, holding her purse too tightly. "I tell them that the facts are less important than the feeling," I continued. "We all have a Tyler in our lives. Maybe not a gambler, maybe not a fraudster, but someone who makes us feel small. Someone who sells us a version of reality that benefits them." I looked down at the page. "This book is not about revenge," I read aloud. "Revenge is just drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. This book is about the architecture of survival. It is about realizing that when your life burns down, you are not the ash. You are the fire." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "And finally," I said, closing the book, "it is about learning that a broken thing can be more beautiful than a perfect thing. In Japan, they have an art form called kintsugi. When a bowl breaks, they don't throw it away. They put it back together with gold lacquer. The cracks become the most valuable part of the history." I touched my chest. "My cracks are gold now," I whispered. Applause erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was warm, loud, affirming. Camille was clapping the loudest, tears streaming down her face. I spent the next 2 hours signing books. To Sarah, stay strong. To Emily, trust your gut. As the crowd thinned out, a man approached the table. He was wearing a gray suit. He looked familiar. It was Detective Inspector Miller, the man who had interviewed me at the police station. "Mrs. Anderson?" he said, nodding. "Inspector," I said. "Or is it H. Anderson now?" "Just a reader tonight," he smiled, placing a copy of the book on the table. "My wife read it. She told me I had to come." I signed the book. "Did you ever find the rest of him?" I asked quietly, so no one else could hear. Miller hesitated. We found a shoe. A few miles downstream. Italian leather. That sounds like him, I said. The case is cold, Hannah, Miller said gently. He's gone. Truly. I know, I said. I don't see him in the rain anymore. Miller took the book. Good luck with the new life. You earned it. He walked away. Camille came over, linking her arm in mine. Dinner? She asked. We booked that Italian place you like. You go ahead, I said. I need to do one thing first. I'll meet you there in an hour. Are you sure? Camille asked. She knew where I was going. I need to close the loop, I said. Kensington Heights stood tall against the night sky. The glass facade reflected the city lights, looking like a giant, glittering obelisk. I stood on the opposite pavement. I was holding a takeaway coffee, just watching. I looked up to the 25th floor. Apartment 17. The lights were on. I could see shadows moving inside. A man and a woman. The woman was laughing. She threw her head back. The man walked over and handed her a glass of wine. They looked happy. They looked perfect. They looked like Tyler and me 5 years ago. I felt a pang of sympathy for them. I hoped their foundation was stronger than mine. I hoped their deed was real. I waited for the anger to come. I waited for the bitterness, but there was nothing. The building was just a pile of bricks and glass. It wasn't a tomb. It wasn't a temple. It was just a postcode I used to live in. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text message. Liam. The dog ate your tulips. I'm sorry. I owe you dinner. And new tulips. I smiled. A real, unforced smile that reached my eyes. I typed back. I prefer daffodils anyway. Put the kettle on. I'm coming home. I looked at the building one last time. Goodbye, I said. I turned around and walked away. I walked past the high-end boutiques, past the expensive cars, past the life I thought I wanted. I hailed a cab. Paddington Station, I said. The train ride back to the Cotswolds was peaceful. The city lights faded, replaced by the deep velvet darkness of the countryside. When I arrived at the station, Liam was waiting. He was leaning against his battered old Land Rover. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing his thick wool sweater and jeans. When he saw me, his face lit up. Author of the year, he teased, opening the door for me. Do I have to bow? Only if you want to get hit with a bag of books, I laughed, climbing into the passenger seat. The car smelled of sawdust and wet dog. It was the best smell in the world. How was London? He asked as we drove through the winding lanes. Loud, I said. Crowded. And finished. Finished? I closed the chapter, I said. The book is done. So what's the sequel? Liam asked. I looked out the window. We were passing the village church. The moon was full, illuminating the stone walls of my cottage up ahead. No sequel, I said. I'm tired of drama, Liam. I think I'll try a different genre. Oh yeah? What genre? I reached out and took his hand. His palm was rough, warm, and solid. He didn't pull away. He squeezed my fingers. Peace, I said. I think I'll write a story about peace. We pulled up to the weaver's house. The lights were on inside. Liam must have come down earlier to turn them on for me. Smoke was curling gently from the chimney. I stepped out of the car. The air was cold, but clear. I walked to the front door. I took out my key. It turned smoothly in the lock. I opened the door. Inside, the fire was crackling. The dog was sleeping on the rug. The daffodils, Liam had already bought them, were yellow and bright in a vase on the table. I put my bag down. I took off my London coat. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden. The moon illuminated the spot where I had dug out the bindweed a year ago. The earth was healed. The grass had grown over the scar. I wasn't the woman who ran down the fire escape. I wasn't the woman who stood on the dock in the rain. I wasn't even the woman who wrote the book. I was just Hannah. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. I turned away from the window, away from the dark, and walked towards the warmth of the fire where Liam was waiting.